We join pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Yes, we'll call in order and we'll go down for the Flight Training Scholarship 2022. Yeah.
Bob, do you want to shut that off? Down there?
Sure. There's nobody here. Yeah. Switch.
Mr. Tim, I'd say probably half the easements in Coffee County we get to look at. The other half we never get to see. They originate in a weird way where they, on a private level, where a private citizen can engage the federal government to provide an easement, conservation easement.
These counties are changing that to the point that the commissioners have to oversee that.
Yes.
And that needs to be done.
That's what you need to mandate as a commission, is that any easement, private or commercial, needs to be, somebody has to put a set of eyes on it.
Yep.
Yeah, can't just walk it up to the office and record it.
Yeah, you sure?
His ears must have been burning. Yes, we can. Yes, I was, for some reason, I was waiting for 9 o'clock. We're already in. It's Monday, I gotta wake up. All right, first on the agenda is approve the minutes of Monday, April 18th, as written.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Tim moved, Don second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Are they gonna have anybody here?
No,
No.
if you need him.
No.
Otherwise, let's do that resignation.
Okay. Miscellaneous motions from, Coffee County Highway Department, motion 2022-25, based upon the recommendation of the county engineer, move to approve request for authorizations to advertise for one full-time crew supervisor for the asphalt crew. No new position is being added. This request will only fill a current vacant position within the department due to voluntary resignation.
We might know a little bit more about that.
I can call him.
I hate to just, somebody send a paper in and this is what it says.
What if they had somebody retired?
Well, it says due to voluntary
Voluntary
resignation, so
resignation.
somebody might have left, but
Well, it wouldn't be resignation if it was
We can discuss
retirement.
when he comes in next week too.
yeah.
I guess well, Andrew's going to call.
Well, he'll be in later then. Somebody will be.
Just table this until later.
We'll have to come back a little later.
We'll just table this for later time today or even maybe next Monday.
We'll be here Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, we'll be
Or
here Wednesday. And that, I believe, concludes our book.
So we're done, go home?
We're done going.
Except for Darren sitting there.
I'll just take that as a yes.
I guess we're a little early, Darren.
That's fine.
You wanna start?
You bet. First off, the engineering firm had some pictures made of the new runway. And they made one for you guys too, since you were very helpful for this. The project received an award for reliever and general aviation airports. And so it's a really nice runway. And anyway, I'll just set it back here. If you guys want to display it somewhere, you're
Have you been down it
once or twice.
in a plane?
Yeah, yeah, once or twice. Morning.
Now, how big of an airplane can you land on that airport, on that runway?
Our wheel rating is 10,000 pounds per wheel, so basically they're restricted by, you know, their insurance company as well. They require so much room to be able to take off and in case of an incident, get back down and be stopped.
Enough room to get up and
Yeah.
back down.
Yeah, so, but 10,000 pounds per wheel, pretty large, but we can't, you know, we had DC-3s, you know, 12, 14 passenger jets, stuff like that, so being 5,500 foot has opened us up to a lot. So,
If there was a major emergency, could a larger plane land?
if it was a major
And not create an
emergency,
issue?
the problem would be going through the concrete, depending on the weight of the airplane. So 10,000 pounds per wheel, if they got gear here, gear here, gear here, you're looking at 30,000 pounds.
Yeah, 30.
So, you know, a big plane would just go right on through it. They'd stop, would probably be fine, but we'd be starting over.
So like that big airplane that landed in Wichita at the wrong airport?
That would cause some issues.
That caused some issues with
Yes.
Never did hear anything about that, but I think it got off the ground and went away.
It got handled.
I bet that was expensive.
Oh, my, yes.
I don't remember what size airplane that was, it was huge.
I don't remember, it was big.
How thick is the concrete on that?
This is 8, I believe, yeah.
8 inches.
Mhm.
So we could land at 18 and stuff, we need to 14s
And it could, yeah,
without worrying about damaging it.
yeah, that's what I'm here to do, see if we can get an F-18. No. Okay, you guys.
Sure, get at
You guys, last year, I came to you and asked for $270,000 matching funds, and you gave it to us for concrete around our key hangers. And I also applied for a state grant to lessen that burden. We were not awarded that, so no big deal at all. We have the $270,000 to match what we were required to. What came up after all of this was, this is the current layout of around our T hangers right now. You know, just each individual T hanger has an approach going to it, and then there's grass islands in between. Our engineers came up with the idea of
Doing away with the grass.
doing away with the grass, which is a wonderful idea. Help with snow removal, less grass in the hangars, you know, even if we blow it away, it blows under. I understand this is kind of a luxury item, but we are bidding the project tomorrow, so I told them I would come ask. It would require another $170,000. And as I said, I understand it's a luxury item. It doesn't hurt me to come ask. I would like your opinion, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down. I know it's a lot of money, but my job is to approach these issues when they arise. So,
Are you doing this anyway?
You're
Going to be doing this anyway, right?
Yes.
So all we're doing is adding.
Be $170,000 more to do away with the grass islands and make it 100% concrete.
I don't know how many airports, even the small airports, have grass around the hangars. I would think it'd be
Not
very
many.
small,
Not
very
many.
small percentage.
Yeah.
just because of the
Yeah,
debris.
yeah. And like I say, we understand it's a luxury item, and, you know, I feel you guys have been very generous with us, and so I hate coming and asking, but that's
You
my,
have
that's my
extra
job.
cost taking care of cleaning out the grass and.
That's what the $170,000, it's included. If we add 170 to the 270, it was 338. I've got a budget here. 438,000 would be our total. The county's total part of a $1.3 million project.
How much activity is there, Darren, in and out of those hangars on a daily or weekly? Because that probably doesn't happen.
Weekly, I'm
4
gonna
or 5
say,
times a day probably doesn't happen though.
no. Weekly, I'm gonna say 12, 15, you know, depending on,
Average 2 to 3 a day then.
yeah.
And most of that's probably on weekends?
A lot of
Pleasure,
it is on weekends.
which
yes.
don't make any difference.
Evenings, yeah. Evenings and weekends, so it's just, like I said, it's a luxury item, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now, so, but,
But like I said too, the usability, to me, is not quite as important as the benefits. You don't have to mow it, you don't throw grass into the hangars, you don't have grass laying outside when they bring a plane out and crank it up, it's not sucking it all
Yeah.
in. You don't have snow removal, you go down, you get the snow gone, and,
well, I thought
you're
of,
not mowing it every other week.
yeah.
So-
I thought of several ways to try and sell it to you, but it's all, you guys can see the benefits and the negatives. The negatives is the additional $170,000. The positives are snow removal, less debris in the hangars, and it will surprise you how much grass gets in the hangars, but that's just a matter of with a blower. So, you know, it's
It's a matter of having somebody to do it.
yeah, we do,
Mhm.
but
How wide is that piece of grass?
the
30, 40 feet?
the east side, they are, well, okay, wide, yeah, they're probably 28 feet. But, you know, each hangar has, as you can see, part of the doors is grass in front of it. But
Well, I think we put a lot into the airport, since I've been here, and I really don't have any problem with putting just a little bit more in it to make it nicer, and then it's done, and that's just my thinking.
if we would have gotten the state grant, we wouldn't have even used the 270,000, and we could have done that. But it's just a coin toss of whether we got it or not. We did not. So, well, I was pretty hopeful and pretty positive because we haven't utilized the state grants for 6 or 7 years, and I thought we'd be in line. But there again, you know, I see the positive and negatives of it, and so I just brought it to
When you
present
look
to
at
you.
the picture that you just got to present to us, Darren, we got a first-rate airport. And this here would just improve it.
You got a $4 million runway for $400,000,
Yeah.
and you know we are one of the lucky ones. There's a lot of airports that are turning down grants because their counties, cities cannot match it. So we're pretty fortunate on that aspect of it. So
I agree with Bob. This is one more step that would just make that, you know, a very good looking airport up there, as it already is.
Have you seen an increase in flights coming in and out since the new runway?
we picked some customers back up that we had lost because of the fog, foreign objects on the runway, because we were out there daily. I mean, once that stuff started crumbling up, we'd be out there daily cleaning it and just going back with cold patch. And a lot of them bigger planes, they did not like it, but we've been in contact with them and they're back using us. And they come out of Kansas City, there's 2 or 3 of them that come down in single engine turbines, and they just use us as a training runway, and then they stop maybe 2 or 3 times when they're busy, 2 or 3 times a day, getting jet fuel. And because we are cheaper on fuel than in the city and stuff, so.
But we're still making a profit on the fuel.
Pardon?
We're still making a profit on the fuel,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not just giving it away
Oh, yes.
at our price.
Oh, yes. we're definitely seeing a hit because of the prices, but we're still 80 cents to 90 cents cheaper than the closest, but we are making a fair amount.
How many of your hangars are empty?
We keep one empty.
That's, all the rest of them
Yeah.
are rented out?
Yep. We keep one empty for convenience for us. For the rental planes, if somebody flies at night, and they can just put it right back in that T-hangar number 1. We have a lot of planes that don't fly too. I mean, I say a lot. There's 3 or 4 that don't see much activity.
But they're paying rent.
They're paying rent. We're pretty reasonable on our rent. Which,
How many planes do you have at the airport now?
the airport owns 2, yes. Yep, a Cherokee 140 and a Cherokee 180.
So that's what you train with then?
Yes, but the majority of the training is done in Cherokee 140, because it costs less to operate.
I don't know, guess need a motion to,
And I had one comment, the airport, I'm Pat Reese, board chair out there. From a pilot's point of view, when you're taxiing back into your T-hangar, if it's raining 2 inches, I hope I don't get a tire off in the grass. You know, you're always, because then you're stuck. But it's a convenience and a little safety thing too, if it's wet. So do away with that wet factor. That's all. Thank you.
It is definitely when our tenants come in, you know, they'll come down here and they've got to really crank their plane right here to get it turned around to back in. With the concrete, they can come in and swing a lot wider and be in position. But there's lots of positives to it, but it's $170,000 worth of positives that you need to justify, so.
But is there $170,000 worth of negatives?
No. I can't think of $17 worth of negatives.
Okay.
So, I'm glad to answer any questions, throw it at me. I just,
Would
like
this
I said,
just be a, change order on the existing?
we're bidding it tomorrow with adult 1, which is this, because the only thing that FAA will fund is what's in pink.
Okay.
And adult 1 is this, and adult 2 is this, plus the additional concrete. Adult 2 would be the entire thing.
So we're replacing all this blue concrete anyway,
Yes,
no matter what?
you guys are paying this $270,000 for this.
And, well, when you have to start cutting it up like that, that's gonna be more expenses for labor than making a one down.
I surprise you.
Yeah, I mean,
I know the estimates anyway, so.
yeah,
I notice they don't go till next year though.
yeah, March of '23 is the earliest construction would
Why
start.
is that?
Due to timing of federal funding, we have to get this in, and we'll be 60 to 90 days before we're awarded the grant, and then we're running into cold season. The time everything gets put in place, and if you do a notice to proceed in October, then possibility they'd get it tore out, and if it got to 0 and stayed at 0, so.
Okay.
Chances are, if you don't do it now, you won't get it done.
No, we,
You know, go in there later and dig dirt out 6 inches deep to lay the concrete, you're gonna be talking about greater than 170
yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. You know, a lot of this cost, there's gonna be, the engineers are estimating if we do this, we've taken all of the dirt out in between, plus the concrete that's there, and plus they're going deeper, 400 to 500 loads of debris that has to leave. So that's a lot of the cost compared to a couple hundred loads, so.
And like you said, Darren, to me, it's quite a bit of money, but to me, doing it now and doing it the right way, I see some pluses in it.
I definitely, you know, for me, is being at the airport, I would love to see it like this, but I also see other viewpoints, so.
Mr. Chairman, I wanna move to go ahead and allow Darren to accept the bid with the 2 options with it.
Okay.
I call them options, I don't know what you call them, but they're
And
an
this
option.
is something I can put in the budget that comes in June to be funded in '23, since we're not doing the, project, earliest start date is March of '23. So it's not like I need the $170,000
Yeah.
tomorrow. but it's a lot of money, so.
Don's made a motion to fund $170,000 for an alternate concrete project at the airport. Do we have a second? I'll second. Any discussion? Funds to be paid from,
You want it in the budget
probably just put it in the budget.
Add it as a capital outlay project.
on our side? I mean, or do you want it to go on the airports and the general fund, cause he's funded out of the general?
How do we do this grant? Do you,
I think you did that one out of capital improvement, capital improvement reserve.
well, this is a capital improvement in a sense, so.
To me, it ought to come out of the same
Okay,
bracket.
so, yeah. So then in that case, it wouldn't have to be just whenever he's ready for it, then we could write the check and it wouldn't affect budget.
Right, well, he said he could write it
Okay.
into his budget for
Yep.
2023 even.
Well, but I mean, you wouldn't need to.
You wouldn't need to.
Wouldn't
Because
have to.
he can come here and then you guys can just
Yeah.
do it out of the reserve. And it'll just need to be placed on a capital improvement plan.
Again, that's only cost estimate too. I mean,
Right.
the project ain't bid yet, so it
Yeah.
could be less than 170.
It could be less, it could be, no, we're not gonna do it, you know, it might be, so,
Up to 170,000.
up to 170. It's a hard situation, I'd hate to be a contractor right now bidding a project that,
Yeah.
doing March
You're
or
there
January
right
now,
now.
yeah. That's, you have to take care of
There's gonna
yourself,
have to be a lot of cushion in there,
yeah.
I would think. All right, Don's, moved, Jesse seconded, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We very much appreciate all of you guys' support, it's super nice airport, and
Keep it that way.
Yeah, I'm excited to tell the rest of my airport commissioners, so, thank you very much. You guys have any questions for me?
We know where you're at.
You know where I'm at, some days.
Last 2 times I was out there, see, you was gone someplace.
I try and do that as much as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
is Danny leaving for active duty?
He's back.
He's back.
Today's his first day back.
He is back,
He
okay, well,
was,
good.
he was gone for 9
Good.
months.
So the kiddos can get right after it.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
We
Appreciate
might
it.
teach Pat a little bit about flying too.
Yeah, he needs some help. Thank you.
Thank you. We've gotta wait till 9:30, don't we, for the bid opening?
Yeah, we will. need
Because
to.
if somebody hand delivers one, it's,
No, there was a turn-in date of Friday.
their turn-in date of Friday.
But I have it on the agenda for 9:30.
We probably better,
Somebody might wanna be here for it.
yeah.
But you got checks and stuff.
Oh, on this motion, Wayne said he is at a conference, so he's not available, unless I can call him back and I can put him on speaker if you want. But, he said this will be advertised in-house only at first, and if they're unable, or if nobody, if they don't get anyone that puts in for it, then it will be put in the paper, but at first it won't be advertised outside.
Why don't we just tell him we will deal with it Wednesday?
Okay.
It's, might be an emergency to him, but it's not to me, so. If that's okay with everybody else.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Woo.
Jesse, do you know if Barry made to leave that here?
Yeah, I think that's the commission, or the counties.
Yeah.
He said they have 2 pictures.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere so nobody kicks it and breaks it, maybe. Set it in Angie's office for now, I guess.
Let me put it,
Yeah,
is
it's
that over
fine.
there?
Probably wouldn't hurt to move it.
Sure is a nice picture. That's probably what the drones were doing, right?
It could be.
Bucky, you didn't have any luck getting the bond person here for today?
No, sir. The way it's working out, I guess we're gonna, just so there was a lack of communication, so we'll
Okay.
address that.
10-4. Wade, you have a good weekend? Good. A little windy on Saturday, wasn't it?
Had a fence panel blowout, looked like piano keys to, so in the way to put it back up. Making sure my dog is done.
Okay.
How'd that work holding that big old panel up now in?
Not very good. Tried to screw a hole in my finger.
That will happen.
You know, if you get behind it, it wouldn't blow it out of your hands.
I was doing the best with what I had.
Nuclear plant generating power today?
Doing good.
Good.
You guys have any comments from last week's drill? I know it's a new experience for some of you guys.
I found it rather
Yeah, see, I heard one.
informative. You just don't think of how many bodies are involved. And that's just on our county level, that's
Oh, yeah.
not counting outside of the county.
Yep.
You know, at the state and at the surrounding counties that's taking care of other stuff as well.
Yeah.
That we have no idea about.
National Guard comes in, they post little state police.
Was the National Guard was they
They
involved?
were at the forest staging area.
They was at the forest staging area?
During an evaluated, they'll have a bigger presence, but yeah, they provide security, they assist with roadblocks, and sometimes they got a really neat semi-trailer they bring down, that's got like 6 or 7 pop-outs on it, I swear, that they have a mobile command center.
Mobile command, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
It's
I've
pretty
seen
neat
there.
to see.
It would be cool during that training to go up in the air and see everything that's taking place. I think it'd be kinda neat.
Yeah, they've brought helos in the past.
That would be cool. I would volunteer for that.
Amazing how many departments are involved,
Yes.
from ag,
Ag
for
is
your
a
animals.
very big thing around here, especially the state, you probably don't necessarily see it in the county, but, Department of Ag will be big, they'll have a veterinarian there, assisting with the recommendations for livestock, like Prussian blue, things like that, what to do, because you're gonna end up with embargoes in place, that, it would be a pretty complicated event.
Oh, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper as it goes on. I mean, your grains, your livestock,
Yep.
everything that's in that path. I hope it never happens.
Me too. We've got a good design and a good safety record.
Yeah, I was impressed. For being the first time.
I'm seeing where environmentalists are thinking that nuclear energy is eco-friendly now.
Yeah, it goes in waves. It really does, depending on what political background is in office, things like that. But it's good carbon free. You know, it's
Okay,
once
that's
you
fine.
once you build the plant, you know, it, operates on the number of fuel sticks that it has for the life will fit in a pool on the site. So it doesn't, when you consider the number of train cars of coal that'll come in to, say, Lacine or one of those other coal power plants, I mean, you're hundreds of cars a day by, you know, we can truck it in on a couple semis for 2 years' worth.
You know, Ray's been to several of our training, and he said he was stepping down in 2 weeks.
Yes.
There was 2 or 3 other Wolf Creek employees there. Is one of them gonna be taking his place?
Yes, we had, 2 individuals mentoring, in the morning that are coming into that role. One Burke and the other was, Reynolds, Phil Reynolds.
I was wondering if,
Yep,
I can't think of Burke's first name
yeah.
for some reason, and he went to school at Leroy, for some reason, I just
Yeah,
skipped.
he's a local kid.
He was there for the first time.
Yes,
I was
Yep.
wondering if he wasn't gonna be stepping in,
he is, he's gonna be playing one of those roles.
and I don't know his name like the back of my hand, but I can't pull it up.
Morning, Mike.
Take him.
We're waiting for 9:30 for bid opening. Do you wanna go ahead and get your stuff out of the way?
Yeah, I just got real quick when you guys are good.
Come on up.
So, recently I acquired a property at, 812 Des Moines. The previous landowner signed it over to me. There's a house there that had burned probably 4 or 5 months ago. He was unable to, clean it up, so he signed the land over to me. So basically what I'm asking today is just a waiver of a landfill fee so I can clean up that site and haul it off and make it go away.
I'll make that motion.
Tom's moved.
The house has been burnt for several months.
Yeah, it was
That's
3 or
why-
4 months ago,
Yeah.
maybe even longer than that.
Are you gonna try to build
Yeah.
like maybe a spec home there?
I'm gonna put a small little residence in there. It's not a very big lot. It's only 50 by 120 deep, but I'm gonna put a small little home in there. That's what the intent is. So
I'll second it, so we get some discussion.
Tom's moved, Bob second. Any further discussion?
Usually, Mike, this goes through the housing authority when they waive landfill fees for this.
okay,
This is kinda a little bit different out of our realm now, but
okay.
I would prefer that you stay with the procedure we've been doing for quite a few years and just go with them and they could come in and request it.
I was unaware of that.
I don't think we've ever really done it for an individual before. We always had to go through them, so, but I'm not opposed to it whatsoever.
Okay.
But I think there's a procedure we probably should follow to stay with what we've always been doing.
So do you want me to contact Rhonda then and do
Yes.
this again?
Yeah, with Rhonda, and then she would bring it to us, and I don't care if she brings it in Wednesday.
She'll probably, she always brings pictures in,
Yeah,
for those of us that are not familiar with it.
Sure.
It gives us all a very brief update of what it looks like. Sure.
and I definitely think it needs to go, no question about that.
Well, I guess the city is on them pretty bad to get rid of it, so he signed it over to me because I'm unable to do it, so.
So we just wanna table this till Monday or
I don't know,
go
I moved
to,
to be seconded, so,
well, yeah, then I guess we can go for a vote.
up to you.
Well, I just think we have, the only reason I second it, because I wanted to get into discussion, and we have a procedure, and I would kinda like to see we stay with procedure instead of just
So do you think
start
we
jumping
strike
around.
the motion then?
I just say
Table till Monday?
table from
till
Monday or
Wed-
Wednesday or Monday, she
Wednesday or
come in
Monday.
Wednesday. And you gonna start on it today?
No, I got enough to do today.
If it's
Probably
not a
enough to
problem.
do tomorrow too.
So we'll just table this till Wednesday or Monday?
Yeah, I bet you, if you touch base with Rhonda, she'd probably take care of that picture today and bring it forward Wednesday.
However you guys like to approach it, it's your call. So,
I'd call and put her on the agenda for Wednesday. Have her come in real quick.
Okay. That'll work.
I'll go visit with her and get her lined up and get her taken care of.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
See ya.
I think, I was approached the other day about waiving landfill fees on another resident. I was under the impression he was coming down to present it to the commission. And I'm wondering if maybe some wires are getting crossed somewheres, and they're being told to come to the commission. I don't know. Instead of going to the housing board.
Yeah, I agree, normally Rona does come in and they do approach her, but I mean, to me, if somebody's gonna clean something up. I'm good. I mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Rainbow ought to be commended, I mean, he didn't wait 30 days after his place got on fire to get her done, so.
Andrew, did you get that motion on the corner house? Did you, the email I sent to you
On the
on the corner house? Okay.
I think that, since we have the procedure, I think we don't, if we start making exceptions, I think we're gonna end up with
We get bombarded.
a lot of things happening.
If they're coming to a department and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, that's a different story. She's always been good about bringing stuff to us.
I think it's great that he's finding these cleaning properties up.
Yes.
I've got another motion for you guys. I'll print it off here.
Okay.
And, and you can have discussion on it too before, you may not want to do it, but.
Kind of a slow start to a long day, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Kind of a slow start to a long day.
It is. Because I think our 10 o'clock appointment will probably last a while.
A long while, I believe.
I would like to go to ball game later this afternoon.
You like, what time's it?
It's at 4:30.
It's 4:30. You gotta travel very far?
School.
Up to school? We'll get you there, Bob.
I'll do that on my way home.
We'll get you there.
For some reason, my motion didn't come out. I have it written. I think this is the ladies that came and talked to you a while back, Jesse and you.
Oh,
Victoria.
Yeah.
Corner house, where's that, from Powerhouse?
Yeah.
And it's always Melissa Landis from
Yep. I think they had a housewarming or an open house deal here not too long ago, I think.
Yeah. They're requesting that 2,000 out of the special alcohol program fund that you guys have.
Well, we already gave them some, right?
Did we give them?
I was gonna say, is this the same place?
We did that. Crosswinds, I remember previous Crosswinds asked for some of that money a few years ago, and we had determined that we did not give it to them.
Right, but we gave some to that,
Powerhouse.
Empower House or
That was
Ministries?
17 or 18,000, wasn't it?
Empower House Ministries,
We gave him 15.
Melissa Landis.
Right, so
Did
yeah,
we
this
clean
is
that
from-
fund,
To these people? No, they were different.
Yeah, so this is a different.
Well, I think this is the house that this is the place they bought.
Corner house.
We might have to do some more research on this.
I can go try to call this number and see if they're connected or if this is something.
Well, what I see in here, only thing it mentions is, Lyon County Drug Court Program. It doesn't mention anything about Coffee County on that part.
Did we deplete that account?
No, you've got like 14,000 in there.
There's still, I'm thinking we depleted it, there's still some funds there.
Yeah.
It has 418 Market Street, Emporia, Kansas. Isn't that the one that they came here?
I think this is the place they purchased, and they're doing the home and assisting individuals that need a step up, you know,
Yes.
to get their life straight. But like I say, I'm not 100%.
No, I don't think it is because it's got a different executive director.
Works different.
And they had been working with Watkins, and it was Melissa Landis who came in here every time, so yeah, this, I don't know, and they never mentioned the corner house as a business on its own. And it doesn't say they're requesting an additional, it sounds like this is a first request.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think,
And this
I'm
thing for a
impressed
house,
on
and
that.
then you
Individual 60s and older. I don't remember that.
Oh,
I think
okay,
Mark's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
maybe they're just sending it out to counties to see if they can get funding. I don't know.
I'm sure that's what's going on.
I think we need more explanation.
Well, how does it affect Coffee County?
Did you see if they can come here and present to us?
And I can go, yeah, and run double check and see if this is the first contact too that they've ever tried.
I would contact Melissa Landis first and ask her about this,
Okay.
and then I would contact the corner house, whoever.
Want me to go do that real quick while we're thinking of it, or?
Yeah, we're past 9:30, so we can, so this was a motion, I'm assuming.
It would have been a motion, but you don't need to do
Yeah.
anything right now.
We're just gonna let it hang for further, we need more information.
Please do the bid opening.
Oh, I think I got one. All right, we'll open the bids, sealed bids that were for, you do, is that right?
Demolition of the one stop.
No,
224 Southport.
224 Southport Demolition. This is from Schmidt Excavating LLC, Burlington, Kansas. It is for $26,180.00. Could start May 16th, finished by June 6th. Next in is Pear Land and Cattle. Bid price is $26,650.
$500 due.
$500 difference. Schmidt Excavating is the low bid.
So what was Pear's starting dates and the ending dates?
They do not say. Was the seating part of it?
Yes, sir.
I'm not reading any start date or finish dates, Bob.
Do you have a copy of that?
RFP.
Yes.
They'd be looking at $25,000.
Have you got the copy of that? Is it your-
Yeah.
I believe it was in there. It was in the contract.
We want to make sure they're all doing the RSP is requesting. We, take a little bit of time to look those over before we make a decision, make sure that they're somebody else, the rest of them may want that too to look at and see what.
That was your RFP, is that what that
Yes.
was? Yeah, I've read it.
I've read it.
Yeah, I mean,
Are those bids, somebody needs to check and make sure that they're exactly what the RSP is requesting
Yes, sir.
before we take any action on it.
we'll be here Wednesday or all on Monday.
And that's all I'm at, I don't really need to look at them, if somebody else will do it, make
Yes,
sure
sir.
that they're meeting what we're asking.
Yes, sir. The RFP did call that out, that there would be consultation, discussion about making sure they're providing exactly what we want prior to notice proceed.
And bonding was included in this.
Yes, sir.
1.2 says it's supposed to have a start date and an ending date.
In the actual response,
Pardon?
in the response,
Yes.
That's what it says. 1.2, start date and completion. Bidder shall submit in the response the available start date and estimated time of completion. If awarded, the Economic Development Director will coordinate with the bidder and provide a notice to proceed once all project details have been confirmed. So it sounds like one of the bids
One of the bids is
doesn't
not
have a start
complied.
and finish date,
I'm gonna look at it one more time.
but it is clear here.
yes, sir. That's pretty clear.
Estimate date, 4/6, 4/6/22.
The standards for the bids are 6 of them. It looks like that would be the only thing that's not inside the bid.
I still think this would be appropriate to have Bobby look at them and bring them back, that way everything's taken care of.
Anybody want to look at that?
Sure.
Would you scan that, make sure you don't see a start date and an end date?
Anybody else want, there's no mention of start in the date.
At this time, that'd be the only thing that is, that bid is not included, because everything else would be on a site inspection, so. To make sure somebody's following the procedure, so, other than that. You know, personally, probably. Forego that mishap if they were the lower bidder, but it's just $500.
Mr. Bobby? Review, make sure it's all good,
Yes, sir.
come back with us Wednesday.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you.
See you Wednesday.
We wanna do some roundtable while we're waiting for about 20 minutes?
We can take your break.
Or we can take a break?
Could we ask Wade if he knows anything about this
Oh, you know anything about this Cornerstone, Wade?
corner house?
Corner house?
I was looking for the information that last people we gave that 15,000, and I can't remember the name of it. Chris, you remember?
Empower House.
15,000.
Empire House Ministries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought I had her information right here because, but I
I
don't.
think I still have her card, and she's called me a couple of times just to kind
So
of.
this is a complete different.
I'm guessing.
I'm guessing they just sent it out to everybody surrounding him, to see who could, all the counties surrounding him, see who would be
Cause it's kind of
willing to give to them.
it's kind of the
who
way
wouldn't.
Empire House Ministries come to us, saying, hey, you guys haven't used this stuff for blah, blah, for X amount of years.
Yeah, true, and but they're, tied to, they have some ties here in Coffee County and Burlington that takes residents from here up there for help.
I suggest they come in and
Yeah.
talk to you so that there's,
That's kind of the way we left it, so.
and they indicate they're willing to do that, so.
Well, I can call and get them put on the agenda for next week if they can come, or as soon as they can come.
I think if they want something, they need to come, yeah.
Okay.
Since you have time,
Yes, sir.
so you had me working on this, this is just a draft.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Want you to take a look now.
Thank you.
It's the road and bridge.
Yep.
Job description. So, you'll see, I may have added some to what you provided to me, because I think it's especially important that you have two lanes here. One lane where someone who's not an engineer and what they can legally do, and then when they need to consult with an engineer. So the very last page is actually taken from a publication from the state, and actually if you want to see that publication. LTAP, Kansas Local Road Management Handbook, a guide for Kansas County road and bridge officials. And within this document, it talks about all of the different key county officials, includes county engineer, road supervisor, public works department, county clerk, county treasurer, county governor, so on and so forth. And on page 7 is where that came from. So there's a section that deals with engineering, need for engineering, and then selecting a consulting engineer. So I think it's important in that job description to indicate that there are certain types of legal events that require consultation with an engineer, and that somebody knows up front when they will need that. So basically what I did was take what's on page 6, which was pulled from a Kansas Department of Transportation article, quote, a study of the duties of the county engineer in the state of Kansas from 2005, and that's where this road and bridge tasks in Kansas, engineering required. So on the left column, it talks about what does require a licensed engineer, and then on the right column, what doesn't require an engineering license. And I also tried to take what you provided to me and put it into each one of the, I guess, customize it to Coffee County's job description, because this is what, after McGrath came in, what our new job descriptions look like. So it's a draft. Take a look at it, and if you have any questions, see anything that needs to be changed, you don't agree with, I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? But if you want to see this,
Take your word, Wade.
so Bob's already highlighting, so that means.
Yep, I'll get with you.
Okay. So no decision needs to be made, obviously, right now, but you tasked me with putting something together. So that's, where I am, and it's easily modified, easily changed, so if you have any edits, any questions, let me know.
Needs to go out sooner as opposed to later.
Yeah, so it can be next week, that's what you want.
We will be in Wednesday.
Okay,
Are you available Wednesday?
I am.
We'll probably discuss it more in links after everybody has a chance to review it today and tomorrow, and address Wednesday, and then maybe you can get corrections made or questions answered.
And, the last page on page 6, it doesn't have to be included. I included it because then that job description sort of has the criteria and where it came from.
No, I think it's okay to have that.
So it doesn't feel I just made something up.
Just throwing extra papers on there.
You just made something up, is that what you said?
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like I just
Oh,
made
it
something
doesn't
up.
look like.
Do you have anything else?
Two weeks ago, the mayor of Burlington was here to talk about what criteria they had for the circus and different things they wanted. I had concerns related to paragraph 2, which I believe I brought up. Since that time, I've met with Philip Wright, the city attorney, expressed my concerns related to paragraph 2, made some requests. He made notations and was gonna take that to the city. I don't know if that was done, but just so you know, it's, legal is involved on both sides. So one of the things I suggested to him was, prior to the circus even coming into town and setting up, someone needs to go out from the city and the county to assess whether there was any existing damage, whether that be by drone or however else, so you have a baseline. And then from there, if any damages occur. The other issue was, if there are damages and the city and the county can't agree on those damages and what the anticipated cost is to repair those damages or make the city whole, make it like it was, then that there be some mechanism to have an independent third party come in and say, here's what it would cost. Now, do I anticipate that? No, but if it's not there, then, you know, it's a sort of a, what I call a foreseeability analysis. Next, and we can take this up later, but if you remember here 2 weeks ago,
Oh, right.
I talked about the computer software program for the county attorney's office, and this is, paragraph 1 deals with waiving of the purchasing policy for good cause, and I think I demonstrated within the purchasing policy the good cause. I don't want to read it because somebody will have to read it. The second part of it is where the purchase will come from, and this is where I probably need to tap into Angie, because I carried over money last year that was designated for this particular purchase, and I listed 2021 county attorney carryover of $25,000, and the number I have is PO 184. I don't know if that's how it.
Did you have a purchase order for it, or?
That's what Jessica gave me. Where
Oh, okay.
now I've not done that before, but I don't know how that works.
That should be correct, then we can go back and pay
Okay.
that.
And then there will be additional cost, and I'm not sure whether I have it written down right, but remainder to be paid from the 2022 county attorney budget, and whatever that specific line item would be. software?
Yeah, 200,
Okay.
but just contractual.
Whatever it
Make
needs.
sure that purchase order's out there real quick.
And then the last thing is for a motion for the board to approve the request of the county attorney to sign all necessary documents related to the purchase of the software program, whether it be the initial startup or any supplemental documents. I have a copy of the contract. And since I last talked with you, at least present time, and the number of counties that are going with this particular program is at 34, most recently Saline County, but as I indicated in the wording here, Osage, Franklin, Anderson, and Allen all have this software. So all the counties within the 4th Judicial District, which is us, are using it, and the prosecutors are happy with it. Now, the staff, because they have to learn something new, they may not be as happy. But I think it has a lot of benefits, and it'll make life easier. It'll actually save money in the long run.
Did I ask last time, does this interface with all the other counties? Can you interface with all the other counties or courts with this? Does it tie together web-based?
So the courts are different. The courts use a program called Odyssey, and they're tied to Tyler. It used to be that full case and full court was sort of the interface between prosecutors' offices and the court, so that when the county attorney's office would enter data, you would push a button and it would send all that data and whatever the prosecutor was doing to the court to save steps. Well, that interface doesn't, we don't have that anymore, so we're having to do something completely different. Where it will help with every county attorney's office that is a part of the same program is you can do a general search by name and see if if Wade Bowie has a case in Coffee County, I can plug Wade Bowie into the database. And if any of these other counties have cases involving that individual, then it will show what the charges are, what the status is. Cannot go in and look at their case file, their records. I can only see a very limited amount of information. But it's helpful to know what's going on in another court.
Yeah, that's why it would be helpful, that's for sure.
So you can take this up later,
Okay.
just so you have it. I wanted to.
You warned us it was coming.
Yeah, I did. Is that the right way?
We can go ahead and do it now.
And really, it's basically a sole provider.
Right.
Provider in a sense, so, and if that's what other counties around are doing,
Well, I mean, if it helps with the process, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer situation. I mean, yeah, it's expensive, but
If I remember right, what you're using now is pretty kind of obsolete, outdated.
I mean, we're
Of course.
we're limping along with it.
That's,
So
it's more of a necessity than a want.
yeah. So what I do like and what I don't like is everything is web-based and it's all going to be paperless. So I don't like the idea of thinking about a paperless prosecution, but that's what's happening. So you can always print things off. Where it will help the county tremendously is the discovery function, where right now we're having to take video discovery, put it on a USB flash drive, and send it to the attorneys, and then they download it, and then they send it back. It used to be on Blu-ray. Blu-ray, if you've been in the courtroom and have dealt with playing something on Blu-ray, you play, and then if somebody says stop, go back, you end up having audio, and then the video stops, and by the time it buffers, it catches up, and it makes it look like you don't know what you're doing because nothing matches up.
Mhm.
This way, it
If I can say a couple things here, I'm working a case for another county. They asked me to do it because they have a conflict of interest.
They send everything to me, all their officers' video, all their evidence, paperwork, and all their reports, all from this system, right to my desk.
So that's where the benefit is, one of the benefits. So it'll save the cost for Coffee County through the county attorney's office to purchase these flash drives to send in the mail and then have, not everybody sends them back. Everything will be done by the push of a button now, and then all the evidence will be stored within this program. Even more so, there is an audit of the transmission that shows when it was sent, who it was received by, when it was opened, and if it was downloaded and what time. So that if somebody wants to come in and say, well, I didn't receive this, well, I've got the audit and the records of it, and I can go back and it's easier for me to determine whether I've met my criminal discovery needs so that I don't end up with an ethical violation for not turning over all my evidence.
It gives a paper trail for the computer.
Correct.
Checks and balances.
It will also allow witnesses and victims to be notified if they so choose, to be notified of everything by text message. And within this program, any text message or communication will be saved internally within this program, which is a kind of a neat feature.
Mm-hmm. So we want to go ahead and address this?
Well, you pre-warned us it's coming.
Yep. We'll go ahead and address it. Based upon the recommendation of the county engineer as a form to move
County
attorney, sorry. You're the new engineer. Now, county attorney as a form, move board to approve the request of the county attorney to waive purchasing policy for the purchases of a license for a copyrighted prosecution software program known as Prosecutor by Carpal owned by Carpal Computer Systems, doing business as Carpal Solutions, for good cause due to specific needs of the Coffee County Attorney Office for new and updated prosecution software. The specific program specification credibilities related in said software in the growing number of Kansas counties and prosecutors, currently 34 included adjacent counties, Osage, Anderson, and Allen, who have already purchased, who was selected prosecutor by Carpal. Boy, you get wordy.
Since you read all that, I think the motion is actually the bottom.
It is. Motion for the board to approve the request of the county engineer to sign the contract. County attorney to sign the contract and all other documents necessary for purchase of license of a copyrighted prosecution software program known as Prosecutor by Carpal Computer Systems, doing business as Carpal Solutions, for the use of the Coffee County Attorney Office. Said purchase to be funded from the 2021 County Attorney carryover for $25,000 PO 184, and the remaining to be paid from the 2022 County Attorney budget.
I'll move.
That's good.
Bob's moved. Tom second. Any further discussion?
Do you want to add in there to waive the purchasing policy for the purchase of the licenses and to authorize the county attorney to sign the contract? You want to kind of add a little bit of what's up top, we're going to make.
Yeah, the top part was to waive the purchasing policy. Now, I think it's professional services, but to stay, I feel I need to follow practice what I preach, so I'm demonstrating that good cause is present to waive the purchasing policy.
Enter this piece of paper into the motion and they can come in and read it if they don't freaking like it. Well, look at it. Bob's moved, Tom second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
You have a copy of this.
Put that on the wall in the hallway so people can read it.
Devil's in the details.
Yes. Mr. Goldberg, we finally, made 10 o'clock.
We'll take a small.
Oh, we're gonna take a small break. Hold on just one second.
While you get your stuff ready.
While you get your stuff ready. Take a... 10? We better do a 10-minute break. That's what we're scheduled.
How you doing, Larry?
Tom, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Angie, good to see you.
You too.
The closer we get.
Larry, how you doing, sir?
I have a document here you should have received Friday afternoon.
They all have it.
I realized
Yeah,
that
so
I
don't-
had
right.
never formally written anything as a codicil to my feasibility study. Bringing it back here, modifying the scope, and so forth, and so. Mr. Surratt coming later. He's not done
I don't think it's, that's a lot.
Well, that's what I was probably.
Hey, Larry. Sir. When they come. So I had it. But it should help me. It shouldn't be good.
Don't tell us that, you don't have to do that, so we can, you guys are just run, go take your shit. I'll sign your paper. So I've had, a couple of brides on this, you know, just, on that day, they were, and all they paid for. And I was going to
Don, how are you?
I'm getting along good, Laurie.
Good to see you.
Good to see
This
you.
makes this project work.
You're gonna be fine.
So Larry, how close
You gotta go through the.
is Osage County to CM contract for that move along? Where is, they're gonna interview out of the 6 proposals, RFQ proposals.
I can't wait, but it
they're
feels
gonna
like
interview 4.
You get
Which is Lane County, and they did just a wonderful job. But we'll see, it'll be up to them. Lane County, Greg was telling me they may want to take federal prisoners, I remember.
Yeah.
Typically, I think the first meeting that I attended, was like a work session, maybe across the street from the Capitol.
I'm gonna hire you as like.
And that was discussed, and we gave them the option of sort of building bigger if they want, and they didn't wanna do that, but now maybe they have capacity to really use some of the capacity.
Yeah, money.
Yeah. You're too late now.
Or something like that, so.
You're still
It'll be good though.
Put to Greg.
Yeah.
I did,
So
I would
facto, you
all my
was
friends are married right now. was at another batch truck over the weekend. And, and then she brings the stuff to the wedding place, and I thought I was in really good shape. Not in good shape, but I
So
got
on that, it's
I
fine.
was in my garage, I was
The
thinking,
question I asked is, do we have to do percent pro rata or something?
You can do that, particularly, I gave this example to Greg. Every jail cell that's come out, I don't know if it's 100 beds, every single one.
yeah, we got the ring, so we're halfway there.
Homogeneous
I
cost.
did, a few months ago, I was really running. Now I'm like,
25 beds.
we'll see what happens.
And it really is a simple thing. 25% bondage is, needs to be taxed.
It'll be good, we'll be married.
I mentioned homogeneous costs, so,
I'm working.
you know, special cells for whatever, max security or mental health or something, and those are more
About it yesterday, but
and the Fed says.
in front of you,
want
yeah,
all the
I'm
rates,
totally ready.
all hours, then the calculation becomes more difficult, it's like, okay, we gotta figure out how that's more, to get to
No,
the
this
right
will
percentage.
be general cost. And, it's basically the last of general beds. All the special beds will be incidental to the
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I should mention that here to these guys.
It's all about the calculation, just, if the commitment is 25 beds, or 100 beds, then you get, it's part of the 25 or more expense where I mentioned the homogeneous cost, that makes the calculation easier, but we just need to dig in and say, okay, what exactly are you getting? And what are you paying for in the jail? What sorts of beds, or you say general cost or whatever. Then that just goes toward how do we do the calculation, but in general concept, the 25% is what we're talking about. We just have to figure out what the percentage is.
Notice. Yeah, he's like tunnel visioned on your face anyway.
He doesn't know what
Right. We work with them both there and other places. For the contact review and all that.
Yeah. Well, we're getting married, slight reason, college together. That doesn't matter.
So I understand 2 hours to take you through the contract. And all these things will be special counsel in the contract, so the other way around.
I think it's just wanted a little extra comfort that somebody other would have.
Well, you're gonna laugh your face off, so.
So something comes out that
Yeah.
is helpful. But it's interesting.
Yeah, cause
Oh, well.
just like yesterday, nothing's changed.
So we're looking at bond attorneys and I was overruled on
Well, you guys can That's kind of how we are, and not with everything, but with most things.
legislature approved the public procurement items you have to just open it. So you can easily stop the general contractors, especially on a $50-$60 million project.
Probably 15 or 20 years maybe. And it was kind of controversial for a while, but now, look, everything's
which I give a blanket bid, years ago, it's just not gonna be the overall, the higher you're seeing, they'll just figure out what you got time, baby. See you when you get back, you know.
Whatever you want.
Except your masonry,
We'll take that
So we're,
package.
right, and then she goes and gets her nails done.
Gets her nose done once
Yeah,
a month.
She goes and gets her nails done, she goes,
All right.
that's good, that's right.
Got a system.
Well, I didn't know, I said, back this morning, and I'm willing to talk to them about the project and who we are.
Don't know when I'm gonna be home,
Yeah, I would see that from the outside, yeah, I could see that.
I mean, when I was less than a year old, after that, I figured it out.
Let's say the several twos you were looking at.
Actually, even when I was a 4-year-old.
Tired architect, you decided to, but if you don't, it puts you at risk. So.
So actually from a pretty early age.
I think that's not that, that's an eye.
No, I won. Not bad.
That's good, that's
That's my first time. We used to have 2 weeks. We both had really young teams that left, you know, we're so lucky.
I don't think,
Yeah, we got to get written stuff. Yeah, it really was. You forget about it on the day of anyway. Some of that like little stuff people do.
It's fine. From a trainer. He apologized and everything else, but he's beyond the ditch. We need to go to the.
That's true. It is, yeah.
Back into a church that maybe I'll put a soapbox quite the same.
Pardon? We got pretty happy.
She might want to, just because, you know, you feel like.
Yep. Tim? Good morning. Good morning.
Good idea.
Jesse? How are you, sir? Good. Good to see you. Good seeing you. Good to see you. Good to see you, Larry. All right, we're back. Mr. Goldberg.
All right, 2 items of note. Tonight, we are going to be meeting with the Citizens Committee on this project to kick that process off, and it occurred to us that we had never produced a codicil or an amendment to our original feasibility study to reflect the substantial changes to the project in scope, in cost, in location. So what we did, and we realized that if we tried to bring this group up to speed, up to the present, there would be a gap between what we had published or issued and where we were. So what I did is I produced a revised conclusion dated April 22nd. There's nothing fancy about it. It just summarizes the salient points about the change in location, the scope, and so forth, and then attached to it the cost that I had presented several weeks ago. That was the underlying budget information that this board voted on and approved. So that having been said, I'm asking that you all accept this April 22nd, 2022 as an amendment to by our original March 30th, 2021 feasibility study, bringing us up to date.
Guess we need a motion to approve the feasibility study dated April 22nd, 2022,
Yes, sir.
in replace of the March 30th feasibility study. The April 22nd feasibility study is published.
What it does is it outlines the change in location to the courthouse location. It solidifies the 60-bed general population capacity with an additional 32 beds available for expansion. And obviously the cost escalation that we've all talked about.
We always gotta include the cost estimate.
Ad nauseum, yes, sir.
Oh,
Or April 22, what's the March?
which one you,
What was the March date?
The March 30th.
March 30th?
Here is the original
Okay.
feasibility study without the
March
exhibits.
29th.
March 29th, okay.
Holy cow, you've got a March 29th,
Yeah.
Well,
and I've got a March 30th? Oh, man.
there's a lot of these pieces of paper.
That's floating around.
I hate that. Can I see the March 29th? Or are you throwing it away?
Here's
I was
this
gonna
one.
recycle.
Larry, here's March 29th.
It is,
Oh, you know what, this is not the study, this is the charts A through D.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the March 30th is the study. Okay.
March 2021.
So the 28th, March 28th doesn't mean anything then. No, it's 28th.
That goes with the March 29th cover. So yes, that does.
So is it March 29th and March 30th, which one?
I have the March 29th also.
That's the performance. March 30th is the actual feasibility study.
But we don't want February 10th one.
No. I don't know if I ever told you this, when we were doing, I think it was Rice County, Kansas, and we had a public hearing in one of the townships, and I was yakking about some of the costs, and one gal in the audience raised her hand, she said, Mr. Goldberg, you just said 78,000. My figure says 54,000. So someone else says, well, I got a 61,000. So I couldn't figure this out till I realized, what drafts do you have? And the gal had draft 4, the other guy had draft 6, and
I got draft 2.
I know, it's, unfortunately,
It's a paper trail nightmare.
well, but the truth is, Jesse, to try and tell the story of the project so that people understand how the county commission got to the place they are, that they're asking the community to accept, is important.
It's needed.
Match up.
Anyhow, so what I'm asking is that the April 22nd, 2022 conclusions are accepted and allowed to modify the previous and original March 30th, 2021 feasibility study. I don't want it to replace it because there's a lot in the feasibility study that holds.
Okay. So a motion to include the April 2022 feasibility study,
Conclusions and recommendations.
conclusions and recommendations.
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Jesse's moved, Tim second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, there's that.
All right, the second order of business is in discussions with county officials. My understanding is there was a bond attorney who came and talked to you, and a very reputable firm, QTAC Rock. I've worked with them but points north, not down in Kansas. And what I wanted to suggest, and I do so with the utmost respect, is to get a second bond attorney to come visit you. Gilmore and Bell has a track record in the United States, and particularly in the Midwest, that's nearly unparalleled. I don't know that QTAC Rock has done a jail financing in the Kansas region, where Gilmore and Bell has probably done 70 to 80% of them. I've worked with them all over the Midwest, and their performance has, without a doubt, been exemplary. But, so what I asked Jesse was to allow me to introduce you to Kevin Cowan, who is the bond attorney for Osage County. We go back a ways, and simply talk about his firm, their credentials, his approach, and so forth, so that you've got something to compare, and then you'll make the appropriate choice when the time comes. But the reason a bond attorney who has justice project experience is so important is because this is a story we're going to tell, not only your community, but literally hundreds, if not thousands, of investors across the country. It will include a bond rating with Standard & Poor's or Moody's or somebody, and that story has got to be told in a positive but accurate manner, so that obviously your interest rates reflect whatever creditworthiness Coffee County brings to the table, which happens to be substantial. If someone has never done a jail before, they don't understand the unique nature of the project. And so I just felt, before you all set about making a decision, I wanted you to hear from a bond attorney whose experience with justice projects and with your architect is substantial. So without further ado, Kevin Cowan. Yes, sir.
How many jails have you built, and
With
they have
Gilmore and Bell?
Yeah.
Well, to give you an idea, his senior partner, Mark Grimm, out of the St. Louis office, I gave him his first jail in Montgomery County, Missouri, in 1994. And if that gives you an idea, I have no idea how many projects we have done with them. I think we're going to start Phelps County, Missouri with them. As I said, we just finished up Osage County and brought that to a successful closing. So I don't know, there's probably been, Jesse, 30 or 40 jails, maybe more. So.
And is there any, because somebody's going to ask me, is there any monetary
difference between the two?
Well, or kickback to Goldberg and Associates for the
goodness.
bonding? Because somebody's going to ask me that question.
I'm glad you asked me that. The answer is absolutely not. Not one nickel, not ever.
I know somebody will ask.
In fact, I have to tell you, we have a small municipal advisory firm that does our own projects, just because it's got to be sanctioned and licensed by the SEC and MSRB, Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. And I have regularly discussed with the underwriter, Greg Varenberg, who's sort of the next step in Raymond James, that where we are the architect, we don't take a fee at all for the financial planning, because we just don't feel like it looks too much like we're helping make too much of the bed we're then going to lie in. Mm-hmm. And so all your charts A through D and the financial planning and the structuring, everything that goes into this, the staffing, the operations, which you have copies of, I literally take not one dime from our clients. What we may do is pay a stipend out of our GGA architecture fee to the municipal advisory practice just to pay its expenses. But no, not ever.
Larry, who are you using in Lynn County? You mentioned Osage County. Your bond attorney in Lynn County?
In Lynn County was, it wasn't Gilmore and Bell. It
No.
was,
Yep, it was.
what's that?
It was.
Oh,
Lynn
it
County,
was.
Kansas, yeah.
Oh, I'd forgotten, I'm sorry, okay, Lynn County used Gilmore and Bell too.
Larry, with that in mind, on the
The underwriter was different.
Yeah, that's right.
tax-free bond and the marshal prisoners,
Okay, this is gonna be, significant.
on that, what happened? I'd like to ask, as far as the marshal prisoners, what changed in that time on the tax-free bond?
And it's changing again, Tim, so let me cover that quickly. It used to be the IRS 10% rule governed the issue of bonds if you were gonna take ICE or Marshal or Bureau of Prisons, any of them. And that was governed by 10% of your general population bed capacity or 10% of your square footage, whichever was less. What those dirty dogs did, what those guys up in Washington did, is they changed it that if your revenue from a federal source equals or exceeds 10% of your annual payment, then you're subject to the IRS 10% rule. All right. So, in fact, in Lynn County, where they originally set this up with no interest in holding federal prisoners, they now do, particularly given the marshal's need for beds, short, medium, and long term in every category throughout the Midwest, something like 12,000 beds. They're now interested in the possibility of a refunding where, even though they're not past the call provisions, they're interested in buying back the bonds and reissuing them as taxable. Now, the interesting thing, and I put the question to Kevin, is has there been subsequent interpretations where they don't need to do the whole bond issue? Because the difference now in rates between taxable and tax exempt, which as short as a year and a half ago might have represented something less than 8 or 9 basis points, now is substantially more. So, in fact, I asked him, does it have to be the whole financing? And Kevin's interpretation is no, it doesn't. It can be roughly pro rata. I mean, he and I will have to put our heads together to figure this out. But in fact, let's say in the case of Lynn County with 100 beds, let's say they're doing 20 beds for the marshals, then can we literally look at a bifurcated bond issue where 80% would be tax exempt and the 20% would be taxable, okay? Which actually comes closer to the cap grant program that we did, for instance, for Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So, he can talk to that, but understand that we're going to explore that so that your sheriff has the option to pull the trigger on federal income, on marshal prisoners, should you and he so decide. It'll just be up to a certain limit. All right, so without further ado, Kevin Cowan of Gilmore and Bell.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
Glad to be here. I wasn't sure what I would be doing this morning. Just Larry and his group asked me to attend, so I'll try to make sense this morning. Wanted to mention a couple of things. Larry's kind words, definitely appreciated. We have worked on a number of projects. We try to do the best we can do.
I'm out of our Wichita office, Gilmore and Bell, and we definitely have a Kansas focus. I don't do any public finance work that's not in Kansas. So we have done a lot of jail projects, city, county, school district projects. It's what we do, and I don't have the information in front of me, but our firm probably does 85 to 90% of sort of public finance, bond issue financings in Kansas. Predominantly out of the Wichita office, but we have a Kansas City office, and we have a couple of Kansas attorneys that practice out of there. So definitely appreciate the kind words. Would also agree, Kutak Rock, reputable firm, would never have anything negative to say about them. That's a good firm. A little bit about me. As I said, I'm in the Wichita office. I grew up in Rossville, which is a little bit of a distance from here, but we would occasionally cross paths with Burlington High School in baseball and football back in the day. Washburn undergrad, KU Law, so I've spent entire life in Kansas. And as I said, my entire practice is focused in Kansas. I did work on the Lynn County Jail Project, the Osage County Jail Project, worked with Larry and Donovan, I believe. I'm just thinking about similar jail projects. Brown County in the last 10 or 15 years had a jail project. Rice County that Larry mentioned, Cloud County, just a number of sort of similar projects to yours, I would call them. We've worked on Sedgwick County's jail, which is more of a prison than a county jail if you've been by it, and so worked on larger projects as well. I would jump in on sort of the IRS discussion. A couple of things have changed over time, and I first had experience with this question on a Harvey County jail, which is in Newton, late 90s, and they had a contract for federal prisoners. And at that time, and Larry's correct, it was a 10% test. And the 10% test is for private activity bonds, as we call them. The distinction being most of what you do is governmental purpose bonds. So if you're building a bridge, if you're repaving a road, if you're remodeling the courthouse, that is all purely governmental purpose. If you have the feds using your jail space, and I think this is odd, but it's in the tax code, that is considered private activity. The same as if you leased that jail space to a company that used that jail space in their private business. And the thresholds were 10% usage, usually measured by space, and then were the payments in excess of 10% of what your bond debt service would be. And so, as I mentioned, in Harvey County, they did have a contract, but they sort of backed in to what is the maximum we could do to not pass over those 10% tests. So the 10% test is if it's less than that, that's considered private use, but it's small enough that the IRS is not going to worry about it, and they're not going to say all of your bonds are taxable because you have too much private use. So the 10%, again, that's the threshold if you're under that. What has changed is the IRS has added some flexibility on how the 10% is calculated. Now you can take into account space and time. You know, if you had 20 years of debt service, you could rent the entire jail to the feds for 1 year, in my example, and that would just be 1/20th of the time of your tax-exempt bond issue, and that's 5%. And so that would be okay, believe it or not. You could just turn it over to somebody else for a year. So you have more flexibility in the calculation now. And then the other important thing, and we did talk about Lynn County this morning, is you can identify what space is going to be used. So if you have a contract with the feds and you have, let's say it's 50 beds, and they want to sign an agreement that reserves and they'll pay for 25 beds, that's 50%. Assuming everything's equal, all the cells cost the same, all your common space. That calculation then becomes, you got 25% private use, we'll do taxable bonds or 50%, sorry, taxable bonds for that space. So half of your bond issue will be taxable because half of the proceeds of the bonds are building something that's going to be used privately by the feds. and then everything else can be tax exempt. So it gives you the ability to sort of consider, just as an economic matter, well, can we take some of these federal prisons? Can we sign long-term contracts and know we've got that cash flow and not have our entire bond issue be taxable, because we're still going to be using this jail for our governmental purposes, our prisoners, maybe some other county prisoners, and so so that's important. Know that as you go, nothing else, as you go through this, you do have the ability to sign contracts with the feds, and then the tax analysis is just going to be how much of the jail are the feds committed to, and that's the portion we have to carve out and say that needs to be taxable bond, and then everything else can be tax exempt. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay.
Digesting it best I can.
Yeah, well, and it is complicated stuff, and as I said, time can be one of the factors. If the feds offered 5 years and a certain number of beds, then bond counsel would have to dig into that calculation and say, well, you know, that space is more than 10%, but they're only using it for 5 years, and you've got, you know, whatever number of years of bond. So when you do that calculation, you're not getting past that 10% threshold for the life of your bonds, and so, you know, maybe it's even more flexible than you're thinking about. I don't know what sort of commitments the feds would be making in terms of time, but it's going to be sort of how much space, how much are they going to pay, and then how long are they committed to it. If you had 20-year bonds and it's for 20 years, that's probably going to cause some taxable bonds, but that's also probably a pretty good economic decision if you have the feds committed to pay you for 20 years, presumably whether...
The rate just went up.
Right. In my experience, and Larry's going to have more experience than me in sort of dealing with federal prisoners, but I mean, that's a commitment. It's not, well, we'll send you some when we have some. It's, we'll pay for those 25 beds, whether we put somebody in them or not, because they need to know they have the space when they do need it, and so so it could be a good deal. And I always tell, we have these private activity bond discussions as it relates to bond issues, and I always tell folks, it's just a business decision. I mean, having taxable bonds is not the end of the world. It just means your interest rate will be a little higher, but it may be worthwhile if the part of the business decision is we have tremendous cash flow from the activity that has caused the bonds to be taxable. So again, that always seems like a negative thing. Oh my goodness, our bonds are going to be taxable. And it may not be, if the reason they're taxable is a really good financial decision for the county, whoever's issuing bonds.
So you're saying Lynn County probably didn't take into account that they was gonna be housing possibly federal, ICE or whoever?
Yeah, and I mentioned to Larry this morning, I remember specifically sitting with the Lynn County commissioners, and they had a couple of different options: build it bigger, build it smaller. You build it bigger if you think you're going to have the ability to take prisoners from, maybe it's out county or maybe it's feds, and they specifically chose not to do that. Now, I do think some things have changed in the last probably year that have made federal prisoners more available, and so the facts have changed, and maybe if today's facts would have been what Lynn County considered, I think it was in 2019, they may have decided differently. But I know they specifically considered, well, we can build bigger, and sort of this tax discussion. Well, if you're going to build bigger because you think you're going to have federal prisoners in there, there are some tax implications, and we'll have to work through that. And ultimately, they decided to not build as big as they otherwise could have, I suppose, but probably built for some growth, and Larry can speak to this, built for some growth, and so maybe they have some excess capacity now.
They've got about 24 beds that they can shell in, not dissimilar to your scheme.
Right now, they're limited to 3 marshals, is that correct? Prisoners?
I mean, I haven't been part of that discussion yet, but how many total beds do they have?
Well, right now, they've got like, I don't know, 16 beds, 18 beds right now.
Yeah, it would be, available for the feds or total? What I'm hearing from you is maybe they're thinking, that maybe they remember the tax discussion I had with them. We can't take more than just a handful of federal prisoners without this triggering some tax implications. And that would be true. Whatever that number is, it would be pretty
Oh,
small.
wait, yes. If their payment, which was timed to be right at the bottom of interest rates, is about, what, 900 or 988 or 985 a year. So if you take 10%, 98,000, and take that against 80 or 90 bucks a day, that came out to be 3 or 4 prisoners. So hence, if they're gonna take all of the prisoners the marshal wants to sign them up to, then we would need to do a refunding of the tax exempt bonds and reissue as taxable, but at a higher rate. And what we estimated is that would end up being somewhere around 250 to 300,000 a year in additional interest. So it's substantial. So that's why my question to Kevin is, do we have to refund and reissue the entire bond issue for the whole 20 million, or can we do something that represents a pro rata slice that obviously would have less increase in their annual payment?
Yeah. And that will all be mathematical, sort of what are the feds gonna pay you, how much space are they going to use, what's your current debt service, and, but it does give them some flexibility in Lynn County. And I'm sure Larry's mentioned, or you all have seen in Osage County, they just said, our bonds are gonna be taxable. We're not gonna worry about, you know, do we have a limit on the number of prisoners from the feds we can take at any time? They just said, we'll do it taxable, and they were able to cash flow it. I mean, had they sold their bonds last November, December, it probably would have been a better deal because interest rates have risen a little bit, but.
But Osage County's, I'm sorry to keep chiming in from the back row. Their payment was originally engineered to be a hair over $1 million a year. It was about $1.030 million according to Greg. And it settled in at about $1.315 million. So they'll pay a penalty for that, but they're gonna net about $1.1 million to $1.2 million. And if they keep that in the deal, particularly to reduce or accelerate debt payment, they will pay this thing off much quicker than scheduled.
And Larry referenced with Lynn, redemption features. If you issue bonds, typically there's going to be a point at which you can call them in and pay them off early, redeem them early. And I always describe it this way. You would like for those to be prepayable at any time without any penalty. The bond investors would like them to never be prepayable because they're buying those as an investment. They'd like to put them in their accounts and say, I can count on that. I know it's going to be there for, you know, the next 20 years. So what ends up happening is it's somewhere in between. If you do a 20-year bond issue, usually at year 8 or 9, you'll have the option to redeem those, pay them off early, either from cash or refinancing. That redemption feature frequently gets used to do a refinancing where you issue new bonds, generate a pool of money, and just pay off the old bonds. But that redemption feature, and this will be true in Lynn County if they head in that direction, that's what allows you to do this refinancing. And so if we do a refinancing in Lynn County, for example, pool of money will be generated. They're not to their call date, their redemption date where they can call in and pay off bonds. So that money gets placed in an escrow account. Kansas Bank has to hold it. And when they get to that date, the escrow agent will pay off the bonds. There was a time you could do we call this an advance refunding, where you can't pay off the bonds for a number of years. You could still refund those on a tax exempt basis, put that money in the escrow as I was just describing. So in addition to the private activity things we're talking about, the 2017 Tax Act changed that, and you can't do on a tax exempt basis an advance refunding any longer. You can still do a tax exempt refunding, but you have to nearly immediately pay off the prior bonds. Not that that's salient to this discussion, but anytime you have a redemption feature, so let's say Lynn County or you all did a taxable bond issue for a piece of your jail project. If it turns out, you know, the feds aren't sending us as many prisoners as we thought, or whatever the case may be, and we're a number of years out, there's nothing to prevent you from doing a tax-exempt refunding of your taxable bonds if the facts play out in a way where you say, we're using almost all of our jail for our governmental purposes now. And if you have taxable bonds, that advance refunding prohibition on a tax-exempt basis I mentioned doesn't apply. You just can't advance refund a tax-exempt bond with another tax-exempt bond. That's what's prohibited. If you have taxable bonds and anything happens that makes you conclude, we could have done this tax-exempt, the feds aren't sending us a prisoner, or they've terminated the contract, or whatever the case may be, you would be able to go back in immediately and refinance those to tax-exempt, even though the redemption date is some period of years out. And that's, I'm sure that's all probably confusing or a lot of information, but the point is you'll have some flexibility. Even if you say, we're going to do some taxable bonds, if in 4 or 5 years it turns out we didn't need to do those as taxable, this arrangement we thought was going to play out isn't happening, that you would still have the ability to go back and say, well, that we can refinance that tax-exempt. So just because you have taxable bonds now doesn't mean they'll be taxable forever if things change. And just like we're saying in Lynn County, just because you have tax-exempt at some point doesn't mean you might not have taxable bonds at some point. And again, it's back to that economic decision. What's the best decision to make?
So basically, you need to go in ahead planning for some taxable bonds based on the bed size of your jail.
I think if you anticipate having a contract, a binding contract with the feds, where they want to have reserved and will pay for reserving and using, or reserving and not using, but they're going to pay you for those beds, then yes, I mean, that's going to have to be probably taxable unless it was just a couple of beds. But again, it's not the final expression of your will if it turns out, well, the feds will only sign a 3-year contract with us, and then after 3 years, you know, administration changes in Washington, maybe some of the rules change and they don't want to send you and pay for those beds anymore, that you would have the ability to come back in and say, okay, we have those taxable bonds, but we want to refinance those to tax exempt now because it looks like we're not going to have that contract with the feds. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I should have. If you don't sign a contract with the feds, it's not binding, where they're, as I described, they're going to pay you kind of to reserve the space. If it's just first come, first served sort of thing, that's probably not going to trigger a tax event. But the feds probably don't want that uncertainty where, you know, Monday morning they pick up the phone to call to see whether you have any space or not, and do that every week. But I throw that out. It's the contract, the binding contract, that's the red flag, that the feds are saying, we're going to pay you for reserving the space and probably using the space. But again, even if we don't use the space, we're still going to pay you for you setting aside these beds for us whenever we need them.
I'm sure the contract triggers the payment. No contract, no payment. Even if it's a verbal.
Yeah.
A verbal deal, the contract is going to create the payment.
And I don't know if your current capacity would allow it, but clearly we have counties in the state that periodically are taking prisoners from Sedgwick or Johnson, or maybe even some feds, but I think it's, again, on a first come, first serve. If we have the space, we'll take take some of your prisoners, and there's the per diem and all of that, which again is fine from a tax standpoint, but you're right. The contract, when they sign it, you're gonna have an obligation from the feds to pay you a certain amount for a certain number of beds for a certain period of time. I think. I haven't seen one of the contracts being proposed currently, but that's my experience of how those are written. And it protects you. You know, we're not reserving these beds for them not to be used. We could be using them for something else if you're not paying for them, U.S. Marshals.
This probably, I'm not sure it had anything to do with the taxes, but it might change it. If we have these 25 beds from the feds, and they're only using them, can we put other prisoners in those at that time, or do those beds stay empty if the feds aren't using them? If we put other prisoners in, can that change the tax status? So, even though we still have the contract.
I don't know the answer to your first question. That would just be spelled out, whether those have to be empty or federal use only, versus, you know, picking up the phone and saying, you don't have, the U.S. Marshals, you don't have anybody with us right now. We can take a couple of short terms from somebody else. Is that okay? But the second part of it, no matter how that plays out, if you put somebody in a bed, whether that's permitted or not, if the feds are paying for it, the tax status, the tax considerations are the same, because they're paying for it.
Now, I would venture to say, if you say you got 25 beds, you better have 25 beds, because they might bring a whole busload in.
You better have readily available, I'm sure.
Right.
You know, with everything's been discussed here, Kevin, and it's kind of hard to keep up with all the scenarios you're talking about, but in the period of years down the road, we're almost looking at a moving target where we have to review and reanalyze to what direction we're gonna be going, almost on, maybe not on an annual basis, but maybe every 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, and I don't, I mean,
working on a moving target, looks to me.
the sheriff, and maybe Larry can speak to sort of length of contracts the feds are proposing, but if, let's say it's 5 years at a time, then I would say absolutely, at 5 years, you would need to reconsider, not only what are the feds doing or offering, it's what are your needs. Maybe your needs are, well, we can't give you 25 beds anymore. We've grown, we've got this going, and we could give you 20. And so that would get renegotiated probably every 5 years.
At the start, you could probably do more at the start, first couple of years, until everything, you know, and then you might wanna lower what you're gonna give the feds in the contract later on in the years.
Well, the other issue is you put in your IGA, your intergovernmental agreement, factors, for instance, services, okay, where you start with a base of 85 and you say we're transporting to court, that's gonna raise it to 90 or 92.55. Then we're gonna include a medical in it, or a psychiatric or something, and that's gonna raise it to 104.85, and so forth. And all of these things are factors, Jesse, you build in increments, because it doesn't cost the same to incarcerate a prisoner in 2022 that it did in 2010, and it won't cost the same in 2030 that it does in 2022. So all of these things, Don is absolutely right. These things are moving targets, and you all have the right to vote on an annual basis or on a some basis on whether you're going to keep some of this stuff the same or it's going to be adjusted. The fact is that we generally design our jails for the jurisdiction's own needs over the next 10, 15, 20 years. It's seldom that we actually design something to be a revenue generating basis, even though so often it ends up that way. And the reason is because the public really doesn't want to see a lot of that, you know, where you say we need 60 beds, so we're going to build a 500-bed jail and make a lot of money. The public really doesn't have a lot of appetite for that sort of speculative development, frankly.
So basically, I guess the presented in front of us is, do we want to do, what do we wanna do? Taxable or non-taxable bonds, or a certain percentage, is that what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
In a nutshell?
And Larry mentioned Greg Barnberg with Raymond James. He can help with that, just sort of mathematically. You could back into a number and say, well, you know, we don't want to build 500 beds, even though the feds are telling us they could fill almost all of them. Maybe, whatever that number is, it's your comfortable thing. We'll overbuild for our needs at the moment, because we do think the feds will fill those. And then, yeah, you can start making the calculations. What percentage of those beds is that of your entire jail, and what are you being paid? And but again, as you point out and Larry pointed out, it may be different in 5 or 10 years. So it's your needs plus, is there some other, you know, good use? Maybe it's a profitable use that you could put some space to. In the meantime, I don't know that it's forever. I suspect, like everywhere else, eventually whatever you build, you'll probably use all of the beds right here in Coffee County.
We hope not.
But it's, you know,
Unfortunately.
or it's probably going to be county prisoners from, you know, whatever counties don't have enough space for theirs. But
Kevin, the fact is, the board, I think, has made a decision to limit the current phase 1 to 60 beds. We've had that loud and clear. Now, maybe we'll get some different expressions from tonight and moving forward, but the board has done that. So based on our study, you would have somewhere between 10 and 20 beds available for the feds, which is no small amount.
With zero non-taxable bonds.
With what?
Non-taxable bonds?
No, I think the income will still exceed 10% of your payment. So I think one way or the other, we're gonna have to do a split bond issue.
That's what,
with a portion taxable,
right,
and the majority of it tax exempt. But my point, Jesse, with all due respect, is don't you guys want an attorney that has done this before? Because when you look at Warren County and some of the counties that in fact have come in violation of the IRS rule, the IRS walked through their door and said, no, you're gonna refund, pay that money back, or we're gonna declare your interest rate taxable. And then they face class action suits from everybody that held those bonds. None of that we wanna remotely go near, so.
Larry, I'm glad you mentioned that. Jails have been a focus area of the IRS audit program the last couple of years, and I don't know if it's because some of the federal rules have changed, but I know Bourbon County had to deal with an IRS inquiry, which was fine, but I wouldn't assume, but I wouldn't be surprised if you do a jail project within 3 or 4 years, the IRS may send a letter. They just snoop around, ask for, you know, document production, and they'll look through, and, you know, you haven't taken any federal prisoners, and that would probably be the end of the discussion, or we're taking 20 federal prisoners, but a portion of our bonds are taxable, and that would probably be the inquiry. But Larry's right, there have been some places that have run afoul of that, and then you have to deal with the IRS, which is an interesting thing. It's, if you have tax exempt bonds that become taxable, or they should have been taxable in the first place, it's the holder of the bonds that has been claiming tax exempt interest that should have been treating that as taxable interest. So they're the ones theoretically that should have to deal with the IRS, but that's not how it works, because if they had to pay, they're going to, you know, hundreds if not thousands, depending on the bond issue. They're going to sue whoever issued the bond and say, hey, we had to pay extra tax, it's supposed to be tax exempt. And so it's usually worked out with the issuer of the bonds, where you have to make some VCAP payment, they call it, to settle an IRS matter, which is, you know, you fight it for a while and then you have to pay in to make up for all this taxable interest that the IRS has determined. So point being, we definitely want to do this right, and we want to be conservative, and the calculations that we're talking about are that, you know, we don't know how this is going to play out for the term of the bonds, but if you had 20 out of 60 beds obligated to the feds for 5 years, we would probably say, well, you know, if that went away, maybe over the course of your bond issue, if we do all the calculations, that's not enough private use over the length of your bonds to consider those taxable. But we don't want to do that in the meantime, because we're taking a guess at what the future would be. Whereas if we're conservative and say, look, you got 20 beds, that's roughly 2/3 or 1/3. Let's do at least 1/3 of the bonds taxable. And as I mentioned earlier, so in 5 years, circumstances change. Maybe we come back and we do something different, but be conservative so you can take advantage of any opportunities with the feds.
Well, Larry, I guess maybe I'm looking at this wrong. The reason that Kevin is here today is not to tell us whether it's taxable or not taxable.
No.
It is here for us to decide whether we want to use him as our bond attorney, and if we choose him to be our bond attorney, he's going to tell us whether it needs to be taxable, non-taxable, and work all that out.
Right.
Correct.
So.
And he's gonna issue an opinion letter
Right.
on that.
I appreciate everything that he's saying. I think it's very interesting, but I think we're just continuing, that is not really the function of why Kevin is here. It's just to present to us, and he's not to make the decisions before you're hired or not hired.
Happy to be a resource this morning, but you're right. And these are the things you'll discuss in more detail with bond counsel as you go along.
I've got 3 questions.
Okay.
Question 1, if you don't have it, and maybe Sheriff will have to chime in, the feds won't give you a contract until they see what your facility looks like. Is that so if you're anticipating, we're talking about potentially 20 beds, how do you make the bond calculation in advance if you don't know what the contract is because nothing's been signed?
Wait, that's not quite true.
Okay, so
They will give you a contract with your terms and conditions that the sheriff can execute, at least based on us.
Yeah, we did, on Osage County, which just closed, that proposed contract was available a number of months in advance of the bond closing and the bond structuring. So if that repeated itself, we'd rely on that. But to your point, until it's signed, I suppose, you don't know with certainty. It could be that something blows up and it never gets signed, and we did, a taxable piece of bonds. But I know, and it's the best recent example in Osage, everybody, all the transaction participants got a copy of that contract and worked through it, and I don't know, Sheriff and Larry, whether you can time it so that just at or after bond closing, the feds are gonna sign that contract, or how that works. But at some point, we're just gonna have to rely on what's being proposed as a contract.
And there was a little bit of horse trading. We had gone into it at $85 to $88 a day, and in return for minimum guarantees, Chris lowered the per diem to 80, which was enough to ice the deal, and it was signed before closing.
But that's what we would use.
So I think there's maybe some misinformation out there, because what's been communicated to me and to the sheriff, and I don't want to speak for the sheriff, it happens differently than what is being explained. Is that?
I've been told that until the feds come and evaluate your facility, they're not signing anything.
Like completed facility.
They said it has to be 85% complete before they'll come inspect.
So I think that's why when you were talking about a foreseeability analysis for bond calculation, and if that's how it works, I mean, we'd need to know that up front, because
Right.
you can't.
No, I would agree. that you would want to have the contract as said signed, and if they won't, then that would trigger some other, if you're relatively confident it's going to happen, but it's gotta be completed, then maybe you get into discussions of temporary financing or something, where you could do temporary notes for the construction period and know that your permanent financing is not gonna happen for a couple of years based on whatever's in the final contract. So you would have some however it plays out, and I don't know if you're dealing with the same U.S. Marshal or different people, with the feds, but I think what you're describing and what the sheriff's describing, all valid things to consider. Just if we don't have a contract, what are we doing here with taxable bonds? And then it might be, well, as I said, you can do a temporary financing to get you through the construction period and know once construction's complete, we'll know more about this is what it's going to look like permanently for the longer term financing.
Second question, and as attorneys, obviously attorney services are not free. So what does it look like? What is your fee structure? How do you get paid? Because I think these guys and the public want to know. Probably, yeah, I mean, right?
I can't tell you what our fee would, I don't know the size of the issue or anything, but I can tell you that we don't charge by the hour. It's a fee schedule, and it's marginal. You know, a smaller bond issue is going to cost more on a marginal basis than a larger one because there's a certain amount of work that has to go into it no matter what. So that could all be available once I knew more about the project. But I do want to add, the reason we don't bill by the hour is we want to feel free, and we want people to feel free to invite us to do things like this. Like, you're not, if I don't work on this project, you're not going to see a bill from me, and we just want to encourage people to pick up the phone and talk about potential projects. And we get paid when a project is complete or financing is complete, but not otherwise. So that's how we would do it. And we have a fee schedule for different types of bonds. Some are more complex issues, and we charge a little more. And but again, I'm glad you asked the question, because you will know with certainty once your bonds are sized what you were going to pay us for our work. And if something blew up and the deal never closes, and I attend 10 meetings, and you'll never see a bill from us. Again, we just want to encourage you to involve us in the process and not worry about getting periodic bills on something that never happens. So again, at some point I can tell you what the fee quote would be based on the type of issue and those sorts of things, but that's how we would do it.
Is that something you do as a bond attorney in advance, and then that's presented as sort of I don't want to say a bid, but here's what my services would cost for this particular project, and it's anticipated to take this long? Is that something that's customary?
Yes. And a lot of times, and I don't know if Greg Farnberg with Raymond James, if you've seen any numbers from him, but a lot of times the investment banking firm or the financial advisory firm early on will build that. It's not only our fee, the state treasurer is involved in a bond. There's a number of things that build a cost of issuance account, all the costs for getting a bond issue done. Not construction, not architectural, it's all the kind of finance and bond stuff. So that would be available pretty early on. In terms of, we think it'll take us this much time, we usually don't do that because sometimes these issues take weird turns, and something we think is going to take 2 months takes 2 years off and on. But we wouldn't vary from our fee quote. If we said, it sounds like this issue is going to close by July, and our fee quote would be this, and it turns out it closes July of 2023, none of our fees or anything like that will change.
I had 3 things. The last one, and one that sort of maybe at a cursory level been brought up, briefly discussed, is a public building commission.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that, at least knowing very little about this project, as a bond attorney, do you enter into that arena? Is that something that's common? I know Larry and I talked about a public building commission for these hypothetical type of bonds? Is that something that you would think that would come into play here with this project?
Yeah.
How would that work?
Yes. Another good question. I will add, over the last number of months, I've been talking to James Higgins about a hospital project, and one of the things that's been discussed is a public building commission, only because he's mentioned that there may be other projects in the county that would require financing. And so, point one, public building commission can be used for a number of public building projects. Certainly if the county created a public building commission, they have the ability to issue bonds for county projects, which would include a jail, courthouse, county hospital, all those sorts of things. They could be used for city projects and school districts, other governmental entities. So definitely a possibility, particularly if you think we have a number of things that may happen in the next number of years, and it might be nice to have that tool in the toolbox, because we at the county don't want to be issuing general obligation bonds every time we do something, and we may be dealing with other governmental entities. So there's that flexibility. The other thing, and this is why in Osage County we did it, and maybe it wouldn't be applicable here because you have such high assessed valuation, but sometimes public building commissions are used on county building projects because county building projects are expensive and you have a relatively low general obligation debt limit, which is 3% of your assessed valuation, which in this county is still a pretty big number. But that would be the other thing. As we work through it, if it looks like you would approach or exceed with what you want to finance, what your statutory debt limit is from a general obligation bond standpoint, then that lends itself to a public building commission revenue bond discussion, because those don't count against your debt limit, even though day to day everything will feel like a general obligation issue. So those are the two things that come to mind. If you think you might have use for a public building commission for other projects, whether they're yours or the Bow Tech or the county hospital or something, the public building commission might be a good choice. And then again, the other thing is debt limit. And in Osage, it was just debt limit. I mean, $20 million, 3% of their assessed valuation as a limit was not going to work. I mentioned the 3%, and I always say, well, that's a small number. Really, the only general obligation bond projects that count against your debt limit are building projects. Bridges and roads, for the most part, not going to count against your debt limit. So I don't want you to be alarmed if you were thinking, oh my gosh, if we did this project and we only had $1 million in debt limit left and we had to replace some bridges and issue general obligation bonds, those don't count. So it's a low 3%, but there aren't as many things that count against it as there would be for a city, for example. So it's usually just building projects you have to worry about counting against your general obligation debt limit.
Kevin, there's one other reason you would do a PBC, in my opinion, and that is if you wanted your community to feel like there were some other eyeballs on this project over the long term. In other words, a public building commission doesn't need to be made up of the county commission. It can be made up of your sheriff, one county commissioner, one citizen at large, your assistant county auditor. I mean, there's lots of ways you can structure it so that your public feels like somebody's watching the hen house beside the wolves. And I've seen that now in Osage with the commissioners.
During the construction period. Yeah. But their intention is long-term, they'll appoint others after this project.
Exactly. So the point is if you wanted to say it'd be nice to get an assistant superintendent, a clergy, a business owner, the sky's the limit in terms of people being appointed to a PBC. And some of you may say, I'm going to retire. I know you're all way too young to retire, but some of you may say, I'm going to retire and I'm done. I'm moving away or I'm whatever. And I don't wanna be involved in managing this thing over the next 20 or 30 years. So,
Have you talked much about Public Building Commission structure or anything? So,
Nope.
just a little context, I don't want to take up your entire morning. In other states, a number of years ago, and it's usually debt limit or election avoidance, and this could happen in Kansas, but in other states, public facilities corporations were being created where the Board of County Commissioners goes and incorporates its own private corporation. And under federal tax law, that private corporation could still finance projects as long as they leased it to a governmental entity, and then when the whole thing unwinds, the governmental entity is going to own it, so it's truly just this corporate pass-through. That entity can still issue tax-exempt bonds. And I think, it's been a long time, it was before my time, our legislature and maybe legislators were being lobbied, hey, we need something in Kansas, and we don't want to have our cities and counties and school districts going and creating their own corporations to avoid an election or to avoid debt limit or whatever it is. So let's just statutorily create or have the ability to create the same thing. So in Kansas, we have this law, Public Building Commission Act, that allows you to create a public building commission for certain purposes. You don't have to go to the general corporate law, which that corporation would have the ability to do anything it wanted to do. So in Kansas, it's very specific. It has to be public buildings for other governmental entities. If it's created, and you would create it, you appoint 3 to 9 members, and then any project is a leasehold revenue bond, where the PBC is going to issue the bonds, build it, and then they have to lease it to you. That lease, a number of unique things, not subject to the tax lid forever and ever. It wasn't subject to the tax lid we had, for 2 or 3 years. It wasn't subject to that tax lid, these lease payments from the county, if the bonds had been issued prior to this tax lid. But if you issued PBC revenue bonds in 2018, those are going to be subject to your tax lid. But now the tax lid has gone away, so we're back to this place where you would have this leasehold obligation that it's unlike your other lease obligations. Those are subject to annual appropriation, and they're year to year, and you have the budget to make the payment, and if you don't, the lease terminates. These are binding leases. So if you sign, and Osage County is the most recent one, they signed that lease with their Public Building Commission. It is binding. It's not subject to a tax lid. They can raise ad valorem taxes, and would have to raise ad valorem taxes if they didn't have any revenue, other revenue to pay their lease payments. So that issue was rated. Yours probably would. Rating agencies view Public Building Commission revenue bonds as full faith and credit equivalents. So you get this unique structure that provides some debt limit relief, and maybe some other advantages, but you're still going to get a competitive interest rate near, if not the same as, what your general obligation bonds would generate. So again, that's how it would work. You're unique because you have such high assessed valuation. The debt limit may or may not be as acute of a consideration as other counties. One separate story, Harvey County, I mentioned them a number of years ago. They had to use Public Building Commission because they had a debt limit problem. But at that time, that was still the old tax lid, the 88, 89 tax lid, where there were lots of restrictions, special levies for different things. And they were going to have issues with just funding this new jail. Like, great, we paid for the new jail, but now we've got O&M costs are going to be much more. That exception from the old tax lid allowed them to include in their lease payment an amount for O&M, and that allowed them to get that done. They would have had problems raising taxes, whether it's through the general fund or up through the sheriff's department's levies, just to pay for manpower and all the things they're going to have to do at the new jail. So that was a unique situation, and the exception from the tax lid was really important for them. But again, you don't have any fund levy limits now. You can raise your general fund to whatever it would need to be.
Just really quick, in the examples you gave, Rice County, was there a PBC?
No, they actually did just a straight lease purchase agreement, which is, yeah, I don't have the numbers, they would have paid a little higher interest rate, just because that annual appropriation lease, I mean, they're not gonna walk away from their jail, but there's theoretically that possibility that they could not appropriate and make a payment on their lease, and there's no recourse. It's, you know, somebody has to liquidate the jail or something. So that was a lease purchase agreement. But I can give you other examples: Donovan County, PBC, Brown County, PBC, and almost all of in Osage County, PBC, many of them, and I referenced earlier, you could use a public building commission for election avoidance. There's no election requirement, some notice and protest requirement. That's usually not the case. I know Brown County had an election. Donovan, I don't remember. Osage County had an election. And so it's just interesting if you work through where have you seen PBC issues done. Sometimes it's debt limit, sometimes it's we got to do this and we can't afford to have a negative election result, so we got to figure out a way to do, and sometimes it's both. Lynn County, general obligation bonds.
Cloud County,
PBC.
and then you mentioned Sedgwick County. I'm just going through the names you mentioned.
Sedgwick has used both their public building commission and general obligation bonds at different times. Reno County did general obligation bonds, but they had a sales tax. I'm trying to think of the other ones I could mention to you.
You mentioned Bourbon County. Were you part of Bourbon?
Yes, that was sales tax election. And uniquely, I'm bond nerd, I find it interesting. So if you just went and had a bond election for general obligation bonds, in the same way you would for any other public building, it will count against the debt limit. But if you had a sales tax, there's an exception in the sales tax, local sales tax legislation that allows you to issue sales tax general obligation bonds. And if it's for jail and law enforcement, then those bonds are exempt from the debt limit, which I think is a unique result. You couldn't go just issue your pure general obligation bonds without it counting against the debt limit. But if you go do sales tax general obligation bonds, which is what we did in Bourbon, because they probably would have had a debt limit issue there as well, then it won't count it. It's just a specific exception if it's a sales tax general obligation bond.
Would your proposal that would be presented to the board, would it include your analysis of what would be best for Coffee County, or is it beyond that point? How does that work?
I don't want to speak to what the decision makers have to decide, but I would definitely give options, and here are the considerations with the option. I just want to provide you with the information you need to make the best decision. So that sort of answers your question. You have everything I know, and I think you need to know to make a decision about PBC or debt limit or election, no election, those sorts of things. And then you can decide.
When's the proper time for you to provide that information to us with our election coming up in August?
All the detail or more information about my firm, or all of the above?
All the above.
Soon.
Because we've got a committee that's working, that's gonna be out.
Soon. I know Larry,
I'm sorry,
I
starting
think, provided.
tonight. Well, that's what I'd say, we need some information. We
Yeah.
need concrete facts tonight.
I know Larry
To a point.
provided information about my firm, so I don't know that you would need any more information than what we've talked about, other than an engagement letter with a fee quote or something like that. But I could send certainly a memo that would cover, I know I prepared one of these before, just all of your options. It would include general obligation sales tax bonds, which may not be an option for you. Sometimes other counties just need that sales tax as a funding source because they have ad valorem tax limitations that again, may be more acute than what you would have, but general obligation bonds, and it would include sort of debt limit considerations. again, you have a significant debt limit, but I also know from Larry that you have some cash that you may want to put in toward the project, and that might reduce, if you're gonna do general obligation bonds, reduce that number that you're gonna finance to something that's well within your debt limit. I know you've talked about an election. It's not easy to have an election if you're gonna use a public building commission. I mentioned earlier, there's not an election requirement, and you all can't have a binding election unless there's a statute that says you can do it. I have, and I've used this before. You can have a direct election on a charter resolution. We've done this a couple of times where you pass a charter resolution that is very project specific to this, and then you just put the charter resolution directly to a vote, and the voters understand we're voting on the jail. If this is a yes vote, they're moving forward with that jail using Public Building Commission revenue bonds. If it's general obligation bonds, the statute we typically use would require an election on this sort of project. And then obviously Osage County is an example. They wanted to have some sales tax, so they had to have an election on a sales tax. And they wanted to have an election. That worked out, I think, very well for them. Like, we want to have an election. We maybe don't need to have an election as Public Building Commission, but they decided they wanted to have a 5-year sales tax cushion, and so then it was sort of, well, problem solved. You have to have an election on the sales tax. And we actually built into the Public Building Commission authorizing documentation that they wouldn't proceed with a Public Building Commission revenue bond unless there was a successful sales tax election. So if that election had failed, they would have been, you know.
So my thought on this whole thing was pretty simple: 10 million down out of our reserves, bond the rest through what I'm taking the terminology as revenue bonds, which basically, long and short of it, he adds to his budget $1 million a year to pay for these bonds. Is that simple, or?
It is simple. It's maybe more complicated if you want to have an election.
What complicates it?
If we use Public Building Commission revenue bonds, there's no election requirement.
I didn't say anything about Public Building Commission. I just said we just increased his budget. I mean,
so then it could be a general obligation, yeah. Then you have a bond election for general obligation bonds, and the only thing.
That's how simple I wish.
Right. No, and that's going to be your lowest borrowing cost.
That's all I wanted to do.
Those bonds would count against the debt limit, so that I would advise you think about that. Make sure whatever the number ends up being that you would finance, your debt limit is at least $20 million. I mean, your assessed valuation is what, 600 and some. I looked at your last budget. Is it 630 maybe?
645.
Okay. So 3% of that's going to be a little more than 19 million, but for debt limit purposes, you also include motor vehicle valuation, which is going to be a small number compared to 644, but it'll add a little bit of something. That's why I say you can count on your debt limit being around 20 million.
Well, looking at the numbers, we're talking 14, so.
That you'd finance? Yeah, so then if that's the case, and if you're like everywhere else, your valuation coming up this summer, this budget season is probably going to go up like everywhere else in the world. So your debt limit's always going to probably increase. And if you use 14 out of 20, you still have $6 million high assessed valuation. You would still have the ability, if you needed to rebuild the courthouse or something because of a tornado and insurance proceeds weren't covered, you could still go use a Public Building Commission then and say, we're worried about the debt limit. Well, we can use a Public Building Commission in the future.
The key is quite a few years ago when we even started talking jails, actually before Larry got involved, we had some discussion on jails with prior administrations and so forth. One of the things then I said, and I've heard others on here say it since then, we're taking it to the public, win, lose, or draw. They have that.
Well, again, general obligation, but that's the easiest one.
We work for the public.
Yep.
The truth is, you have that magic mechanism in Kansas called remonstrance. And we have done a number of jails in Kansas where the commission had a way to pay for that jail without any tax increase. Okay, like Dickinson, which we're finishing up now, Donovan, but the problem was that mechanism to keep governments from running amok says that 5% of your registered voters, if they sign a petition lawfully, then it puts it on the ballot. So basically what happened is we've done like 2 jails without a bond issue or without an election in Kansas, and the rest of them have either been subject to remonstrance or the commissioner said, to heck with it, we're gonna get hit with remonstrance anyway. Let's just put it on the ballot, let's get the facts out there, and hopefully the public will make the right decision. In Donovan, it took 2, and somewhere else it took Rice, it took 2, but everywhere else it passed right away, and we went on with the project. So, I don't think I don't think you're misinterpreting anything. I think this is gonna have to be subject to voter approval on whatever basis we engineer the ballot language.
Well, I'll just
That's the
confirm.
ballot language for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wherever you wanna work the percentage out to be.
Now, the other thing I wanted to address Don's question, and that's this. When we work with an ad hoc committee, you basically have 3 steps. The first step is to introduce the problem, the issue, to the committee, so that first they can understand if they want to come to meetings and participate, okay? The second is to then present them with the options for addressing the problem, in this case, a new law enforcement center. And the third then is what are the options for implementing it? So I think tonight's meeting is gonna be an introductory meeting. I think probably you will need to make a choice on whether Kevin or somebody else, and have the financing team in place probably sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
That's the way I'd like to
Yeah.
see it presented for the meeting tonight is, based upon these, of course, numbers. I got the 12822, sorry. I'll go to, there's no breakdown on this one, but anyway, I believe that's what we decided months and months and months ago, was 10 million down, on the rest, through general obligation, or, revenue, which we basically increased his budget to accommodate paying for these bonds.
Right. So you can have a general.
So that's the way I'd like
Yeah.
to present it to the committee tonight. I mean, and if they wanna take another direction, then we'll take another direction, but.
2 things. I want to confirm sort of your thoughts about things. That's the simplest. If you want to do general obligation bonds, and it's $14 million or thereabouts, and it's well within your debt limit, and you have to have an election, which you wanted to have anyway,
It's not
go
that
do
we
that.
have to, we just want to. We
Right.
want to.
Well, you would issue general obligation bonds statutorily. If that was your choice, I would tell you, well, you're gonna have to go have a bond election. So that seems to check all the boxes, and the only concern would be debt limit, because it triggers debt limit consideration, but you'd still have maybe $6 million of capacity. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Again, that's the way I'd like to see it presented to the committee tonight, so. Are you expecting all the commission there as well tonight, or are you just gonna stick with your committee that's showing up tonight?
No, I think you're all, more than invited. I think the question is then, do you have to take this agenda item and table it, and so that you can continue it tonight without violating sunshine laws?
Well, I'm not gonna be there tonight, I can tell you that right now, because I didn't even know anything about it until we were on break.
Yeah, I won't be present
You got
tonight.
emailed last week.
I mean, normally what'll happen is you'll end up with a couple of commissioners per meeting, so that you don't have to worry about, going through all the agenda items and
Right.
so forth. It's not intended to be a public hearing.
And that's why I was asking how many,
Yeah.
if you wanted commissioner, just stick with your committee, but again, the financing of it, I'd like to see it presented to that committee tonight, just like that. I mean, Mr. Johnson, you can speak up if you don't agree with me, or you
No,
got
it needs to be presented. I was hoping we'd have at least one commissioner there to talk about it.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if we ever decided we were gonna do 10%. It's been talked a lot, but there's never been anything official that we were gonna pay down 10 million. It's been discussed, but we have legally have never done it, so if we're gonna present that, we probably should legally say we're gonna do that, instead of presenting it on hearsay, because we've discussed it a lot, and I'm not opposed to it, but we have never legally said that's what we were gonna do.
I agree, we have visited with it a little bit, and there were some wanted 10, some wanted to be a little more conservative, you know, so I mean, we need to come down to a,
Yeah, we never put it in a motion, I
Right.
agree.
Well, I think we, here, back in August, a year ago, we set 6. I think
That's when the numbers were lower,
we put 6, I think 6 in there.
percentage wise.
I think we need a little bit more concrete, factual information to go tonight.
In that, do we have an exact, what we're looking at? My paperwork shows number 2, date issue 2/8/22.
You have attached to your April 22nd, this summary cost sheet that we discussed, reviewed, and voted to approve moving forward. This shows an overall cost of about 24,338 with a bid alternate for additional storage, bringing it up to 24,900.
24,912.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Now, I want to tell you all, I don't want you to worry needlessly. This thing is swimming into focus. I think if we discuss with the committee tonight some of the numbers, some of the options, and some of the approaches, I don't think you have to come with a finite decision tonight. Okay, and I don't want you to worry. Yes, we're gonna have to make it in the next few weeks now. But the other thing is, I don't want this committee, and you gotta understand, I've been doing this for 35 years. I don't want them to think everything's over but the shouting either. They may have opinions, they may have input, they may have perceptions that none of us have even thought of, that need to be chewed on at your level. So, I would tell them we've been thinking of making a major investment from our reserves, somewhere around 5 to 10 million perhaps, and they may say, why? If interest rates are good, bond the whole thing. Or they may say, to heck with it, use the reserves and pay the, I mean, A to Z is gonna come up tonight, I guarantee you. So, Don, from your standpoint, yes, you're gonna need to acquire the financial expertise you need to give you all concrete options. But that can take place in the next few weeks.
So your comfort level, that could take place in a few weeks and still bring value to the committee here tonight?
Yes, sir.
Without having.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We're gonna introduce them to the, why this guy needs a jail. We may take some time and walk through the jail, which probably would be, worthwhile. We're gonna introduce the path that we have taken, so they understand why we're not no longer looking at 5 or 10 acres of land out on the highway somewhere. We've now got, much less in terms of courts being done versus building the whole thing into a justice center, which is where we started, you know, and that will have saved, about 5.6 million in construction costs, no small, amount, and reduce the square footage. We're also increasing the probate or, associate courtroom, so it'll be big enough that you all can have juries in there as well. And for the future, I mean, there's lots to talk about with them on an introductory basis without coming to a bunch of concrete conclusions tonight.
As far as financing, when gentleman says we have a debt limit of 20 million. To me, the 10's almost a no-brainer, 'cause, I mean, if the bids come in, the cost of everything's jumping around every day. I mean, it's like ridiculous. It's maddening.
I look at this, Larry, this meeting tonight it's not for the commission to go in and say, we're doing this.
Exactly.
We're going in and say, we want to build this jail. We hired you to do it. I'm not a jail builder, so I'm gonna take your opinion on what you say, and if we hire Kevin to do the bonding, I'm not a bonder, that's his project. So my key is, we've hired you. I think we need to decide, we're gonna, in the next near future, we're gonna hire Kevin, we're gonna hire someone else.
Correct.
And basically, yes, I wanna be involved, but I don't want to be micromanaging you people of what you're doing, because it's we hired you to do it for us.
Yes, sir. But I want to hear what the community feels about the project, the limits they will accept. You know, I want to bring up Lynn County, if I haven't before. We ended up with 30, 35 people on that committee. And it was one of the most creative experiences that we've had with getting a bunch of people in a room month after month. And they came up with ideas, they came up with all kinds of approaches and things that we incorporated into the project that they built. And it's a far better and more responsive process for that having taken place than if the three commissioners had said, A, B, and C, we've decided, boom, done. And so I appreciate Tom and you all making that mechanism available where we can get 20 or 25 or 30 people together. And some of them will fall away. It'll be a time commitment thing. But now, I remember on Lynn, we kind of did general obligation that masqueraded as sales tax, sort of. And I remember having that characterization. I don't know that we want to go near property tax.
Well, I was gonna mention two more things,
No, we wouldn't need, I don't even think that's gonna be a discussion.
No.
That's off the table.
No.
So, it was asked earlier, yeah, if we're gonna have an August election, when do things need to happen? I wish the clerk was still sitting here, but my guess is she would say she'll need to know what the ballot proposition is sometime in May. Which goes to...
We've already had that discussion with
Yeah, are we gonna commit 10 million, what's our principal amount, because that will be in the question. The other thing I was gonna mention, these will be general obligation bonds. One of the things that has to be published in the notice of election is, it's called additional information in the statute, but it's tax impact. For school districts, it's almost always some mill levy increase, and so that will be, if this can be done without a mill levy increase, but it's still gonna be a general obligation bond. I think a lot of times people hear general obligation bond election, that means tax increase. And if that's not true, then that will be part of the messaging as well. There will be, as I said, a formal notice of election publication that will show the tax impact is 0. But anyway, sometimes that's a difficult thing for people. They just know, if we're having an election, that means a tax increase. And here, if you can communicate, no, we've got jail operations, we've got the sheriff's budget, there are ways this is gonna get paid for without a bond and interest tax levy, then you'll wanna make sure you communicate that definitely.
Well, the biggest thing was, number one, where are you gonna put it at? The size was too big, how you gonna pay for it? We figured out where it's gonna be. We reduced the amount of beds, and we still have not figured out how to pay for it. I mean, we've got a general idea, but, I think I could agree.
I don't see the complication in it.
There's really not a complication, so.
I mean, because if your valuations go up each year, that means you're bringing more into the general budget. I mean.
That's why we hire people like Kevin to tell us exactly how we're going to pay for that.
I mean, the only question at large is how many, if we're gonna be taxable or not taxable.
Right.
That is the number one question. And who's gonna be our bond attorney? number two? So there's two questions.
Well, and the $10 million commitment, whatever your bond principal amount is going to be that's in the ballot proposition will derive from how much reserve cash you're gonna put toward the project, and whatever, maybe it's 14 million, that will be in the ballot proposition, which, as I said, probably sometime in May, if that's what the clerk has told you, you'll have to.
May serve.
But I think, Larry, I think this meeting tonight, you're gonna find out things we haven't even thought about.
Exactly.
Well, it was a percentage deal on the bonding. When I keep saying 10 million, I think because it seemed like me at the time when we first started these numbers, it was around that third, if you will, that we were gonna kick in to paying for this and then bond the rest. So 10's actually off. 8's more like a third of 24, so.
I would say somewhere between
But
5
I
and
mean,
10.
Yeah, but I mean, again, if he's saying, you know, got a debt limit of 20 million, you don't wanna max that out either. No more than you wanna rob from your reserve,
reserves.
100% either, so.
What time's your meeting start?
6:30.
It is 6:30.
But there will be plenty to talk to this group about.
Yeah.
Of just the basics, this journey that we have taken together over the last now 2 years, and to bring them up to speed. So please don't worry that tonight we've got to tell them it's gonna be brown brick, and, I mean, I don't even have it's so funny, we're getting ready to start working drawings on Osage. We've got sign-offs on schematic, and I still don't have a clue what the outside of the building's gonna be. And the reason is because I don't know what anything costs, and I don't know what's available. Now, I've never gone into a project that way, but I am now.
It's a new time we live in.
Wait, if there's more than two there tonight, they're gonna be in the discussion, then we gotta be in session, right?
We'll just make sure there's no
No more
two.
too.
Yeah, I think the intent and design of the first meeting was to sort of have Larry introduce himself and go through what the project is and not have any real commissioner dialogue. And then if that happens later on down the road, I think that's why nobody really knows it's happening, because I wasn't anticipating the commission being there for that reason.
Okay.
Well, I didn't want something to happen that threw a kink in at the very beginning of
Yeah.
this for people.
Believe me, we're gonna have a lot to talk about tonight, other than just financing.
Right.
I mean, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So, all I wanted to do when I put it out to you is I wanted to make sure that you guys felt like you were a part of this. You're welcome to come based on what your legalities are, but I don't want anybody to say, I'm not coming, I want everybody to be involved.
I think it'd be good to have some representation there, one or two, maybe, if two's available. One definitely, if they would like to be there,
I have representation because all the people that I asked to be on it are gonna be representing me.
Well, that's it, exactly, that's true as well.
I think if you go and you sit and watch and observe, I think there's nothing wrong with that, as long as there's no real dialogue. This is where the dialogue needs to take place, so if somebody takes something from the meeting tonight and they're there and brings it up on Wednesday, for example, hey, this was brought up at the meeting and we probably need to look here or talk about this, I think that's fair. Or somewhere down the road, schedule a special meeting and do it similar to what happened back last September.
I think it's gonna be easy to say, okay, next month, because there's questions asked tonight, next month, we'd like to have two commissioners there to talk. We'll bring up some financing, or maybe you've got Kevin that can show up, because you've already, hired Kevin, whatever it may be. There is nothing that says that you have to be there tonight. I just wanted you to be able to be there if you wanted.
I want to do what you're expecting of me to do to help you out.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. But believe me, this is gonna be general basics tonight and get people started on the why they're there,
Okay.
and to see the need. That's what it is tonight.
Okay. Making sure.
If you show up, I'll have coffee and water. If not, I'll see you next month.
I feel the same way, you know. If one wants to be there, two wants to be there, that's fine, they can be there.
Yeah.
If they don't wanna be, I don't think tonight is gonna
Nope.
be the,
There's nothing said.
yeah.
There's no requirement.
There'll be better times for a meeting to
Yeah,
have.
it'll be hectic tonight. I mean, it will be, just trying to get everything out in this basic plan that we need to get out.
The ones that show up are gonna have a lot to absorb in a short amount of time they're gonna be there.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to be like a
It'll
mushroom.
stay pretty easy tonight, pretty basic.
Which is actually why, you can say what you will, but I'm expecting tonight's meeting to last till 8:30 or so.
Mhm.
I mean, if my experience is any judge, we'll be closing it up at 8:30, 8:45. There's just a lot to go over.
Mhm.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Very well,
Thank you.
Kevin, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you all
Kevin.
for, appreciate you being here and giving us additional updates.
Glad to help.
I'm scared there.
Is Kevin's compensation for this bond, the guy that Robbie brought in a couple of weeks ago, that we said we needed to get with Larry.
What are we expecting tonight? Cause I brought 25 copies of everything.
Whatever number shows up.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be happening.
You guys got a long break between now and tonight.
You got plenty to do, don't you worry. It's good to see you all.
Good seeing you. Mercy, we got a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mercy. Do we wanna hit around, Wade, you got anything? We started with you a little bit. You got any new stuff?
Just, want you to know it was brought up 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, about the, county line maintenance agreement for Coffee County, and it's Osage County, but by and through our Livonia Township for that road maintenance. I'm just having someone in Osage County look at these proposed resolutions to see if they have any issues with it, and then that will be brought back. Hopefully, maybe as soon as next week.
Okay.
Covered the other issues, the road and bridge superintendent, job description, I think for today I've covered everything that needs to be covered unless you have something for me.
Well, I'm trying to decide if we want to break for lunch or continue rolling through. I think we've got probably at least one executive session. At least one. We got one for sure, yeah.
It is long.
Emergency management, correct?
Emergency management.
It shouldn't take long, it would take.
Shouldn't.
Then are we gonna? Wait. The church,
I have a
are we
thought.
gonna act on it?
I printed that off.
I have no problem, just keep rolling through.
Yeah, well, I can't see it's been much overrun, right?
Yeah, I'd say move on.
Right.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it. This is something I typed up, sent it to Andrea, she printed it up. I mean, I'm a man of few words, so it was pretty basic for me. I like that. I mean,
Wade probably wanna look at that.
yeah, I'm sure he will. But well, it's just a quick draft, if you will, I think we all need to set a date that you wanna set a pre-bid meeting to where everybody comes and visits the site. And then we all need to set the date where the bids will be submitted. And do we wanna let the successful bidder state his own time frame? Or do we designate one? So, those, again, for me, it's just
Well, if you let them set their own time frame, then we can see who we can go, that's part of the deal.
Correct, yeah, I mean,
I mean, I want to get moved on with it. I think right here, basement area be filled with dirt, which the county will provide.
well, and that was the other thing, I didn't wanna make that decision on my own. I know I spoke to Jeff with Road and Bridge Fire, and he did say they could come up with ample dirt to fill that hole,
Mhm.
so.
I think it needs to have a completion date on it, you know. If you leave it open-ended,
Could the completion date be so many days after the starting date? Because you never know what these people got going. They may have a project they have to finish before they could move here.
Yeah. You could say,
And it's sitting there like it is no big issue.
you could say November 1st as far as completion date, I mean, or November, it's January 1, I mean.
Yeah.
yeah, I have no
Of course,
problem
you're
with
not
that.
gonna be packing any dirt there in January or December maybe.
No, you got a hold for
Yeah,
4 or 5 months, 6
and then
months.
the other one would be, you want them to fence it off, you know, to make sure it's safe.
I think that should be part of their.
To me, that part ought to be part of their
That's part of
responsibility.
it.
And that was something I thought of this morning, not when I was typing this, so.
I think they're the ones that need to take the precautions to keep it safe.
Can we, at a minimum, set this over to Wednesday, at a maximum next Monday, just so I can sort of.
But I will agree, I think it should be simple. We want to bid, you're gonna do this project, and it's gonna be done by this date, and that's it. That's it. Whatever. Get on with it.
Most projects I do, I gotta provide a bid bond, cause that way, I mean, if I turn in a bid and I all once I fail, I don't wanna do the project, you're 5% up.
Mhm.
I like that.
Should be a given.
Now, it hasn't been required in several places around here.
A lot, yes.
A lot.
I think it's gonna be changing.
I think the way you need to take a look at this and kind of put it in perspective of what's legal.
We can, like I say, we can add to it, won't take squat, I gotta say it on my computer, or, if I can send it to you, I mean, it's just on Microsoft Word, so it's not a big deal.
Okay.
Angie, got anything good for us?
I've got a few things. So I'm handing out what we normally, use for budget preparation, every year. And I was hoping that we could make some changes and utilize our system a little bit better than what we have in the past. Also create a little bit less work for the department heads. The first page you see that I have highlighted yellow on it, that's the old one, so you can compare it to the new memo. I just kind of changed it up a little bit, and then I also changed some forms. We'll still use our regular budget form, the ones you guys are familiar with, that has a little box on the front, you know, that you guys, you've always used that one. But what I would like to do is, these two forms I would like to have departments use. A lot of departments have created their own spreadsheets, and there's really nothing consistent with everybody. And so when you guys are looking at things, I think it would be better for you to see some consistency and know what you're looking at.
Yes.
And so this form that has the blank line over here, this is one I can generate out of our system. I can email it to departments. They can put in their numbers right in this form, then email it back to me, and I can import it into our budget system. So that's a boom, boom, it's done.
Just
type
click
of thing.
a button.
Right. And then this one here, this is what they would use as their detailed line item budget, along with this one for support behind the summary one that you get. And this one we'll just print off for them. They can just submit it with their stuff and be done. So it may seem like it's a lot here, but it's really not, because we're going to be doing most of the work for them. They're just going to fill out this one page and the front page, that summary page, and then they'll get them back to my office. Andrew and I talked, and we thought that would be better, but then I will in turn get them to her so she can put the books together, because that way if departments have questions,
Right.
we can keep things kind of in one location where they know So anyway, I'm gonna, this is all draft stuff right now. I know I've gotta check my dates and stuff, so if you guys are okay with that, the second memo that doesn't have the yellow on it is what I would like to put together for next Monday. So it basically says the same thing as far as the salary part and the 3.5% for the 2023 salary budget, but then include the following, and that's these forms that I'm showing you now that I would like to have on there versus what was on here before. So it's including a couple more things.
Makes sense to me.
So, I'm sorry? Okay, this is generated straight out of our system, so instead of you creating
Well,
another
it'd be
spreadsheet.
good, every year we have people who comes in totally different.
You
and
can
then we
just
have
go
to
and put your numbers in for each
Everybody
line.
gets-
Exactly.
They wanna create their own.
Spreadsheet or whatever, and then you can send it back to me and I
And
can
then we have
import it
questions,
into
like
the
always
system.
concerns.
And
This
then
is a
this
lot
one,
less
I'll print
confusing
off
for
whatever
me.
I did use you, by
If
the
it's
way.
anything different, they don't get a budget
This is
apparently.
your report.
You there you go.
This report I
Until
give
it's on
to
the
you,
side.
you can use
Yeah.
it in preparation of this, you would include these two plus that summary page to get back to me.
The line item.
Yeah, the line item thing, 'cause
Take a look
nobody's
at it.
consistently the same,
Right.
so.
I see no problem with keeping
I don't
everything consistent.
We do a lot of
Exactly.
budget, trying to figure out what somebody else did because they had a whole different form.
Come
Yeah, they have
on my
a
mind.
better form for them, but not for anybody else.
I just think that if it works, and you're seeing the same thing for each department, then you're gonna be able to,
Yes.
you know, not have to figure out what did they do, so.
And if a department sends something in that's not on what it's supposed to be on, they don't get a budget, I guess.
It'll work, you can change it for next
Well,
year.
they just, and I don't know, I might do like a little department head meeting just to explain it to them, so they're not confused, because then you gotta explain it 13 different times or 14, so I might do that too. But if you guys are okay, I'll go ahead and get it ready and then have it for you to initial next Monday.
I think general is,
Okay,
go with it.
and then,
Do all the departments turn in a line item listing, or is it just, I know in the past, at least when I got here, there was just a number for contractual, just a number for, which in my opinion, it needs to be expanded out like you have it.
well, that's what they've been trying to get departments to do.
Right, so I think it's important because then if there's extra, and I'll use the county attorney budget, if you see that I've budgeted $50,000 for some particular item and I don't ever use that, or it's $30,000 above what I need it for, then you can question that and potentially cut it out later, because as an elected official, the way you rein in an elected official, so to speak, is you look at their budget, and if they have excess, because once it's their budget, then one theory is they can, as long as it's been approved, they can use it for what they want. So I think having the line item is extremely important for sort of a checks and balances internally, because you're responsible for the purse strings.
I think we requested that a few years ago, and Don might remember, I don't know if he was here then, but he might remember, and we've never gotten it from everybody. I mean, you know, some people started, but we've never gotten it from every department for their line items of what it is, and we still, maybe
Well,
this
this
will
might
help do
help.
it.
It might help, I don't
This
know.
might help do it.
Well, and especially if you look at this form here, because if they're paying them out of their, like, say for instance, cell phones on this particular one, it says $600 that they paid in 2021, and it doesn't show any expenditures for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not use that one. I mean, I don't know what the deal is, but let's say dues and subscriptions, okay. 2021, they used $5,900 in dues and subscriptions. This year, they've spent $971. So you'll see from 2 years ago to this year, and then it'll help them figure out what they want to put for maybe next year,
Right,
so.
right.
Anyway, so I'm trying to help figure out something, so.
But it also matters that when each department head sends in their voucher, that it not only designate that it's contractual, but whatever sub-item that it goes with, because that's the only way it'll populate into that list. Because otherwise, it'll all just show up in contractual,
Right.
and that doesn't help.
Will the system provide you the information when that one line item exceeds what their particular budget was for that line item.
Yeah, if we're
That
utilizing.
way it'll highlight it for us
Mhm.
and highlight it for them.
Yeah, it'll
That
show
particular
you
line
like,
item that exceeded what they were requested.
for instance, like it'll tell you a percent of change or an amount of change, and if it's, it'll say,
If it's at 100%, that means it's budgeted out,
right.
I would assume.
And you see those on those reports you get every
That
month.
monthly report, it does have, but it's not as much one line item as what this probably will be.
Yeah, so. Anyway, we can try it, go, you know, see this year.
To me, it's a step in the right direction.
And then, so I talked to Corner House, they're on the agenda for May 9th, they'll come in. Rhonda cannot be here Wednesday, so she's gonna come in, she has to come in Monday anyway on the Abendroth.
Oh, okay.
Another one she's coming in for, but she'll address that one at that time. And then the other thing I had on my to-do list was, we had talked about, and Christina had talked about it when she'd been here, about doing short-term disability for all employees because of the low cost and, like, doing away with the pool. And that way then, it'd actually be a savings to the county in the long run. I don't know if you remember Christina talking about that, but I had that on.
There was some discussion on that. I don't know what's left in the pool, because I asked, can a person put a monetary value on the hours left in the pool? And she was even discussing that maybe it would continue for another year, the pool, because probably, maybe somebody's already scheduled out in the sick pool, whatever that thing's called, to be paid out of. But, you know, no new donations or applications to accept out of it, and then set a certain date and time that it creates over into a monetary amount of money. We could probably fund the disability side
a lot cheaper.
Well, I mean, part of it could pay for the disability insurance.
Yeah.
For a portion, for a time period.
But if you do the disability, you could stop the pool the day you start the disability program.
You could, if there's not a waiting period on any disability stuff. Sometimes there could be a waiting period. Or, unfortunately, I mean, I don't know, if somebody has cancer or somebody has whatever, they might, I don't know that they can single them out anymore, but it's gonna, I just don't know how all that works, you see what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
Where they could get some money out of it now, but they might not be able to over here with the disability side. I don't know, that's above my pay grade.
Well, and I'm just thinking out loud, so like, if you have people that have already claimed, say, some of that money, but then somebody else comes up and there's no money there, what is that employee gonna do?
Exactly.
How many hours in it?
About 326, I think. And then there might be one who still might have a little time left to be pulling from that was approved. You can check on that, but otherwise, yeah, there's nobody else that has been pulling from that. And I know Christina was talking about, we had talked about, yeah, can you use the money that's currently in there, you have to fund some of the disability, or, I think she said no to, you know, there wouldn't be a shared pool, but say, yeah, I needed it and could you specifically donate to me, she said no, there would be no more.
No more share.
No more anything, yeah, even me saying, well, I've got a ton, can I give it? No.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there's not more than 320 in it.
Well, and the highway department has their own, they keep theirs
Okay.
separate. And I
But all
think
of there's-
yeah.
but all of that's coming to a stop.
Right, yeah.
So if there's
Then
600 hours at the highway department and 300 here, if there's even, I mean,
Yeah,
we
there's-
just have to see what, I think
Right.
we just need to see what is out there, what is available of hours.
And then are those just completely just gone? I mean, do we just,
I think 300 is a heck of a number, because I remember this many times being down 15 and 20
and the only thing that really brought that up were a few retirements that, and they all donated 160, so that's the only reason there's really anything, yeah, in there.
and that's another whole issue
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there too. The reason they did that.
That's really the only thing keeping that existing is the people that who said, well, I'll just put 160, and then without that, nobody's just randomly adding to the pool.
So Wade, how would the person, I don't know. say there's 900 hours, say there's 600 hours. Say the road department has 300 as well.
I think that's probably.
You know, so say there's 600 hours available. If nobody is in line or has asked at say June 1st, do you stop?
I mean, you gotta end it somewhere, right?
Right, do you stop, say June 1? I mean, we're already on May, so you really can't stop at May 1.
Right.
And you said there might be somebody
There
still
might be
in it.
one, who might have a little bit of time left.
So,
And see, this month is when we're gonna be having our renewals meetings for insurance and stuff, and that's why
should
I
be
had
good
it
to
on
go
my
into
list.
discussion.
Well, it'd actually take effect July 1st,
Right.
but,
But we could end the deal May 31st or June 1st, whichever you
or
want to look
June
at.
30th,
June
we
30th.
start with this.
I would tie it into when the new anniversary date
That's what I-
starts,
yeah.
myself.
That's why we had it on the list, because I know they're coming in.
It's June 30 or July 1st?
June 30.
To me, that'd be a good cutoff date.
But like I said, I just don't know Christina said, yes, we could turn the hours into into money, basically, that would pay for the employees' disability,
Or
I guess.
the short-term, yeah.
Short and long-term disability.
I'd put it on the agenda for May 2nd. If there's any employees that have any comments, then they can feel free to show up that day, and then you can make a decision one way or another. That way, it's not a surprise, everybody has the opportunity to potentially voice whatever comments they wanna make. I'd suggest Andrea send out an email to all employees, say, this donated leave will be, discussed with the board. The plan is to, so to speak, cash it in and turn it into, short-term disability for all employees.
How do you really cash it in or put it into a monetary deal, because it's actually sitting there, it's nothing.
Yeah, it's zero.
It's nothing, and if
You're just gonna have to factor.
If one person put in at $13 an hour and the other one put in $20 an hour, how are you gonna make that?
You're gonna have to take averages.
You're just gonna take an average of your pay.
Benefit would be when the long-term disability start, it's gone, nothing about it, don't worry about it. And, 'cause I don't think you can put it into monetary value. And where's the money for the monetary value gonna come from?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's gonna come out.
It's gonna come right out of our own pocket
General
anyway.
budget anyway. I mean, a person could just.
It's money we're not, it's money that we would not ever be spending again, so it's just,
Right.
we pay for the short-term disability.
But somebody made $30 an hour, put 200 hours in it, and is paying for somebody with $13 an hour for 80 hours.
But even
You
if
know,
you say
so-
you're gonna monetize it, you're basically just gonna call it this and say it's worth this much, but.
Right, and that's gonna pay for the employees, short, long-term disability or short-term.
But it could,
insurance.
that could work, and it has worked the
Yes.
other way.
Just like that.
Where, when people donated to a Pacific person, the $13 hour person donated 6 hours to this person who was making 20 hours too, $20 an hour too.
Okay,
So,
let's
see, that's
let's
worked
look-
that way too.
Let's look at it this way. Do a self-fund. Do a self-fund short and long-term disability, or a short-term disability. Our own county, you don't gotta waste and spend money on a policy that you might not ever collect on. So, take the amount of hours that's sitting in there, I mean, even if that's a max, $30 an hour. Times it by 30, that's starting the funding of your short-term disability.
18,000.
At $30, 600 hours.
How much?
18,000.
I mean, it's a start. Instead of buying a policy that you might not ever claim
And
on.
using that for the short term, I
And
can
then
see that.
just kinda do it and write up your own terms. You can write up your own terms and conditions. You don't gotta go out and buy a policy.
Cause after a
Because
little
what
while,
is
you go to
short-term
long-term, what is it?
usually?
Is it, how many days till you can automatically draw long-term anyway?
14 days.
That's what I was thinking.
Because
Then you go long-term.
I think it's 7, because that's why during the COVID, they changed the days to 5 days, because people started taking out their disability insurance, so they shortened it down to 5 days. And that's what I was told why, was because that way people didn't qualify to go on their short-term disability.
I mean, you guys the county's kind of self-funding their health insurance
Right.
anyway. And it saves a ton of money self-funding.
Right.
And I'm sure you got a track record on how well the self-funding's worked out.
Well, yeah.
I mean, compared to what Blue Cross
Well,
Blue
we were
Shield
seeing
would do.
27% increases, and now we're like, we didn't have any hardly.
Probably didn't have anything this year.
For the past few years, anyway.
So, I mean,
Next
it works the same way. You can do the same thing with your short-term disability.
Yeah.
And that way you're not wasting money on insurance policy. You can throw underneath your pillow and wait for the tooth fairy to come and take care of it. I don't know. I mean, policies are horrible. Insurance is horrible. Sorry.
It is.
I hate it.
You gotta have it.
Unfortunately, you gotta have it. If you can self-fund it, self-fund it. You have to
Well,
quit
we have
throwing
that.
money into policy.
We have the risk management reserve fund too.
And it's got,
Yeah, but we're talking short-term, self-funding short-term, we're not talking very much money at one shot.
not really.
No, we're
No,
talking very
I'm
much.
saying
because-
that fund can be used for the,
But you gotta set your guidelines, what your short term's gonna be, what's your guidelines
Yeah.
for short term, which you ought to be able to go online and find short-term disability guidelines.
Well, with, like work comp claims, you had to be off work unavailable for 2 weeks. 14 days, calendar days. And then you can go, I mean, if you're hurt on the job anyway, then you can start claiming work comp, 70%, yada, yada, yada.
Could maybe contact your health insurance provider that gives you your, a self-insured, and see if they could draw up guidelines for short-term disability, county funded.
well, we've got our, consultants that we can contact them.
Perfect. Yeah, there's no reason to go buy a policy on this.
No.
Yeah, 'cause it,
Now, your long-term, I can see doing
Long-term's
that.
different story. Well, you got work comp on this side, you got work comp to cover that.
Yeah.
I mean,
say if they were out 2 weeks at $30 an hour, it's $2,400.
yeah.
Okay.
And how many of those are you gonna have in a year's time?
Yeah.
That's not gonna be covered by work comp. That's the difference, work comp.
You still think May 2nd, just to have it as a topic?
Yeah, sure.
And I think if employees wanna sort of know what's going on, that's something they relied on, or they donated however much money, they need to know that
Right.
it wasn't for naught, that
Well, and that's why I say I think you need to put a monetary value to it, you know, and just go the high, I don't know what the highest paid individual is, but, I mean, you can go $25 an hour, $22 an hour, whatever that number's gonna look better for us if you put a $30 an hour on it and turn around and put it in a bank account to start to self-fund short-term disability. I think people would respect that. And see
they just
that
need to
it's
know they're not being cheated out of
Right.
something.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
why putting it on the agenda, so there's at
Right.
least people can come in and talk about it if they want,
Right.
or send a letter or email, Andrea and say, here were some concerns that somebody had about it.
Do you want me to do it that way then, have them email me their concerns or ask them to come here?
I mean, well, if you could completely disrupt county business, if you had a number of them, they need to be out somewhere doing something and they're here.
I would just send an anonymous response back, or.
I don't think you're gonna get anybody that's working do it, because they're not the ones that's putting into the pot. It's been the ones that have retired and left.
Mhm.
And they actually were out nothing, because the way we've been doing it, they donate that because they weren't going to get them to start with, and then they start collecting above that, which I don't think was quite right either. So those people are out nothing, so I don't think we're gonna have any problem with it.
Be people that come in that left, that'd be saying, no, I put this towards this
But we
seems to
paid
be.
them, we showed we paid them too.
Yeah.
Well, they had to either wipe it off the top anyway, or,
Yeah.
so it
Mhm.
doesn't really.
Yeah, they didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
But I feel putting a dollar amount on it is going to be better than just going away.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know, it could be a fund still. And you could even put it into your risk management capital, whatever that risk fund is. You can even add it to it, cause you're paying for the health insurance out of it. But it'd be kinda nice to put it to the side.
It would
And
show.
see it.
And show how it's working.
Well, we could add it under the employee benefits line as the short-term disability line item,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then pay from that.
To see how it's working for us.
I'd get a quote for, short-term disability from an insurance company as well, and then you know what your premium's gonna be, you can keep putting that in monthly.
I know Aflac's got it. I know.
Well, we use, right now, for those cafeteria plans, we use Benefits Direct, so I can find out from them how much it is.
Works for me.
And that's all I have. That was enough.
Tim?
I'm on nothing today.
Nothing.
We kinda hit on it with the church.
Getting closer on that. Getting
Yes.
closer on the road and bridge thing. Or the road and bridge thing, I briefed our, Wade typed up, I was highlighting something, did you?
I haven't had any time.
Guess we'll look it over and discuss it Wednesday, that's right.
Yeah, we can look at it, when- 'cause gosh, we've gotta get it out there,
Yeah, I like to get the emergency management deal they taken care
yes.
of.
So,
That's all I got.
I don't have anything.
you don't have anything? Dawn?
Do we need to decide on the EOC?
Yes, we do. Do we wanna go through Andrea first and then come back around?
I
to
just
you?
have one little thing,
Round through.
related to the church. Besides the sheriff's office, I've had highway patrol ask if they could use that building for training if we decide, when we get a demolition company, if they don't wanna salvage anything, they'd really like to be able to do some things in a building that they can't normally do. So if it comes to that and someone doesn't wanna salvage it, what would be the time frame? Because if they're talking breaking windows, doing things, we don't want it sitting there with broken windows. So would it be, okay, we're gonna demolition it on this date, so you can come in like the day before we're gonna tear it down for training? Or just because they've been asking for a time frame, so but if they wanna salvage it, then that takes that off the table anyway.
Yeah, I think they're gonna wanna salvage the windows and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings up another deal. We were gonna give the museum one window, and we need probably contact them. They need to make arrangements how to get it out then probably, or they can work with the demo team whenever it comes in, but
Yeah, so even
we're
if
just gonna leave that up to them.
So that's gotta be probably in this bid, and they need to be able to save one
Yeah,
window.
One window, yeah, we probably need that in that bid thing.
And you bet, like, that's gonna be up to the museum to work with and not us, right?
Well, true, but I mean, they
Right.
need to know that the
Right.
little window.
Right.
Well, you need to know what window they want.
And they can go take,
Exactly.
they can go take the chair out anytime. I think
Right.
it's just peruse probably to get it out of there.
But yeah, whatever window they want, you we need to put that in there, that they have to be able to at least save the one thing, if they don't wanna save anything else.
North window on the east side, or the south window on the, whatever, I mean, they just need to build.
I don't think there's
document.
any cornerstones left. I think they took it with them up to the new building, so.
Yeah, there are, that one new right above this
But
south
this
door. Gone.
It's gone.
And it's boarded in.
Yeah, 'cause they took
with
it.
them, yeah.
So, yeah, so that's okay.
And
That
then-
would be part of history, but.
The one other thing for the church, and I know we had talked about a church, another church in town wanting the sign, but the sign being, not part of it now, they were wondering if they could just dig up some of the bushes and plant them in their own church. And since that's just bushland,
They'll probably end up in the landfill
When they start
anyway.
letting people do that, and somebody
It's gonna be.
cuts a toe off with a spade.
Yeah.
They can, tell them they can work with the contractor when we let the bid out.
I think that's gonna be the best way to handle it. And the contractor's probably gonna say, no.
No. They wanna eliminate their risk too, so
That's fine.
chances are they'll
That's
say
fine.
no. That'll be their choice.
Yeah, yeah.
That was it for me?
I'm trying to think of wording.
For executive session.
Yeah, executive session.
10-minute executive session.
Think we'll be
Discuss
enough?
applications, emergency management. And
Is that right, Wade?
Non-elected personnel, you're making a hiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still discussion, you're not making a
Jesse.
decision.
Stop.
Do what?
Give us time to stop.
Time to stop, yes. Let's go 15-minute executive session. Board and Wade discuss non-elected personnel.
Candidates for
the emergency preparedness, position.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Tim made the motion, Tom seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We will go in at 12, just hit 5, 12:30. That'll give us 12:30. Do we need the applications on the table?
I do not. I don't know about anybody else.
Not enough bathrooms between here and there for everybody to hit the.
Sweep the floor.
We need a little more.
I know, I'm
Get your
sorry.
bag.
I do. It's not as big a shoot.
But you're right, we do.
Right.
But if you don't realize that it's bigger in that space and come back to.
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess I will make the motion to offer Amber Presley the position of Emergency Management Director based upon salary negotiations.
Motions on the floor. For Amber.
All second.
Tim seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pass 4-1.
Do I get to vote?
Oh, nay?
Aye? No. Yeah, nays, aye.
Nay. So we'll offer Amber the position for, emergency management. Want to let I think it was applicant number 1, know that we are moving in a different direction.
Should we not wait till?
Well, yeah, better
Should we
wait.
not wait?
Better wait.
Based on salary.
Yeah, we'll visit, Wednesday, try to get a hold of,
Can we do it Wednesday?
yeah, we can discuss her.
And she's candidate too, just for you.
The motion was subject to salary negotiations, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. Which will carry Wednesday, if she's available. Okay. Do we have anything else?
I do. She goes down that door outdated.
Leave that upstairs for you. I'll add that to the list. Okay.
Basically, we need more different refreshments.
They were fine. It's
I'll take the snack.
Good spot.
Better than nothing.
It's just funny.
I never looked at my Doritos.
Just eat it and go on.
Usually the Doritos don't last that long. I usually eat
They're
those
gone.
before they get hot.
Well, I guess if nobody has anything else, we will recess until Wednesday at 9 o'clock, right?
That's correct.
We'll recess at 12:50. There you go, sir.